Today's episode of the One Piece podcast is brought to you by our Patreon. Check it out at patreon.com/One Piece podcast for all the latest, including a brand new episode featuring Steve and Alex talking about the latest Star Wars movie, an episode of me and Steve talking about our 10-year journey to this point in the One Piece podcast, and an episode with me and Ed just talking about doing 600 episodes together. There's all that, the full-length documentary, OPP Japan. We also have videos, 3,000 plus photos from our most recent trip to Japan, and a lot more. Again, that's all at patreon.com/One Piece podcast. Enjoy the show. This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 603 for the week of Sunday, January 12th, 2020. My name is Zach.
My name is Ed.
And on today's show, we have only very special guests with us today. First, from Strucci Loves Movies, we have Shannon Strucci with us. How's it going, Shannon?
Going well. I'm excited.
Yeah, we have a special episode. We'll get a little more into that in a minute. From the My Hero Academia podcast and from the Haikyuu podcast, whose name I'm blanking on, and I apologize. We have Kendra.
Hi. The view from the top. Hi, I'm Kendra.
I need to start reading Haikyuu. I have it downloaded on my phone, and I'm just terrible about it because I've only heard great things from people I respect. So, we also have, he is an Eisner Award nominated artist for Merman, and many more. We have Joey Weiser with us here now. How's it going, Joey?
Good. I've got my opening rankings ready to go and ready to talk about starting with the garbage tier.
No, not doing that this time.
Okay.
Finally, we have, I'm going to just call him our game show host for the podcast. We have with us David Bednar. How's it going, David?
I'm sweet, I'm a feet, mostly I tweet.
Oh my god. Okay. Someone has,
You're supposed to like a panel.
I can't believe someone has more dad jokes than me. Anyway,
well,
although you were
I'm
an
actual dad, so if I don't make
that.
dad jokes, my body just sort of dissolves.
Have you and Grant ever been in the same room at the same time?
Oh no.
It's one of you will die.
Just would set on fire. So yeah, today we have a very special, I introduced everyone, right? We have a very special episode of the One Piece podcast for you guys today. First off, we are going to have our volume 95 recap with Steven and Ed. Ed, do you want to talk a little bit about it? I don't know if you want to tease it a little bit.
Oda's horny. That's about it. I mean, what's the guy? Sonata gets 2 questions in the SPS this volume.
Wait, I heard Steven said that Oda was in rare form, I think, in this SBS. So, I assume that's not the good kind of rare form.
No, that's not true. Like, not besides the horniness, he also gets a good couple of good jokes in. So
yeah,
he is. I don't know. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there. Not a lot of serious questions, like at all. So
yeah. Oh, okay. Well,
there's good
enjoy
jokes
that.
and bad jokes. There's good jokes and bad jokes, but yeah, mostly jokes.
Yeah. So that'll be a little later in the podcast. But first, I assembled a team from around the internet of people who like One Piece, and we felt like we want to kind of just talk about the big theories and ideas and overarching stuff that's been happening in One Piece. We had, I'd say, one of the most consequential chapters of, I'm going to say, as far as we've been doing the podcast, certainly. That was just last week. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, in terms of lore, in terms of backstory,
absolutely, yeah. I should probably preface
emotion. Like, none of the main characters even appeared, but it is important to the history of One Piece, and that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I think that's why consequential is a better word for it than best or favorite or something like that. It's definitely these are the kind of chapters that change that overarching story of the One Piece narrative. So I just want to do 2 quick prefaces before we get into real discussion and us talking about crazy tinfoil hat theory stuff for
We're gonna
the
spoil
next.
everything.
Yeah.
We're gonna first off, we're gonna spoil everything up through the current chapter. So if you don't want to be spoiled, probably not the episode for you. Second off, we're gonna spoil the ending because we don't know that. But we're gonna try and figure out that overarching plot. So I wrote this article, and if you haven't checked it out, I'm gonna plug it again. It was 5 years ago, but it's still somewhat relevant. It's called The One Piece Connection. It's on OnePiecePodcast.com.
Or don't read it. Listen to it on SoundCloud, where I did the voice for it. Me and Alex did the voice for it.
I see what you're doing here, Ed. So you could listen to it too. Maybe we'll post it up on something again. So anyway, I go through kind of the way Oda's storytelling is laid out and how there are these small immediate stories like Arlong Park and Logtown, or currently Wano. The larger stories, which are like East Blue and Baroque Works and the CP9 stuff and Water 7 and Ennius Lobby. Then there's these big milestone stories that last for like very large portions of the series. So like all the stuff leading up to the Paramount War, with Ace and Blackbeard and Whitebeard, and you get little tastes of it through the series, but it's not necessarily the main focus. But much like what we talked about in the One Piece Connection, today we're going to probably be mostly focusing on that big underlying story stuff that Oda's sprinkled from the beginning and have to do with what's likely to come at the very end. So before we even get into that, and Kendra helped out a lot, and everyone on our chat helped out a lot to put this together.
I didn't help.
Except for Ed. Ed did not help at all. I can't emphasize how little Ed did. So we're going to go through a timeline specifically as it relates to this Wano flashback because it's freaking confusing. I mean, Kendra, I know you were also expressing the frustration with following along.
I legitimately got a headache.
Yeah, it's confusing. Like, well, first off, Oda made a mistake in that first chapter, which unfortunately it will be probably correct in the volumes, but the chapters that are in the Shonen Jump app don't get updated. So it begins 40 years ago, I believe, and not 39. Though a lot of the events, obviously move away from that. So let's go one by one. And stop me if you're confused, please. I was discussing with Ed before we even start. These years correspond to the current date. So they're 40 years ago, 20 years ago, 10, however it might be.
Yeah. So that's post time skip.
Yes.
Yeah. We're not going to make this super confusing, or more confusing than it is, I should say. It's already super confusing.
So is this after the Battle of Yavin or before the Scar Killer base incident?
So
they changed They changed it.
They changed the.
So in the new visual guide for Rise of Skywalker, they use a new dating system, but it's unclear whether or not it's actually replacing the ABY BBY form or if it's just for that volume.
All right.
Oh my god.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting that. Okay.
I thought you were making up things, but
Oh boy, they're on a roll.
Okay, so
I mean, it sounds like something they would do. So
we're gonna call this BLRSA, which means before Luffy returns to the Shabari Archipelago. I think that's pretty easy to follow, right?
Oh my god.
Blursa. It's a Blursa. Blursa Minor. Blursalino. I'm gonna write that one down. Blursalino. Okay. I'm going to forget that that's what that stands for immediately. I just wrote down that. Okay, so in 40
a lot of podcasts
Blursa...
would do an explainer to make the stuff seem simple, but we do an explainer to make it more complex.
Thank you, David. So, in 40 Blursa, Odin was 18 years old 40 years ago. That's when they called it the Mountain God incident, but it was really just a giant pig or boar came through town, and Odin slashed him in half. And even though he saved the town, he got blamed for it and got disowned.
Hey, he reattached the boar.
That's true. That part might be the most nonsensical thing we hear tonight. So that's 40 years ago.
Giant stitches on it, on the side of that boar.
Now, I believe, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, he wanders around for a year collecting what become his crew, including, let's see if I could actually name all of these. Shutenmaru, not Orochimaru, which I almost said, even though I didn't really watch Naruto. So Shutenmaru or Ashura Doji. We have Kinemon, Kanjuro, Raizo, and who else was collected in this? I'm doing this off the top of my head.
The siblings.
Oh yeah, Izo and Okiku. Yeah, or Kiku.
Kikunojo, yeah.
Kikunojo, that was I forgot her original name. So yes, that's 39 years ago. They're all collected and he becomes daimyo of Kuri. So I think it was around a year where he was like disowned. And Kendra also pointed out that in the same year, Roger discovers the Lodestar Island, which is that's where the log poses all pointed to, right? That's the final island. But he said then after that they went crazy, right? The log poses. He said something along those lines.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And then he had to go find the poneglyphs to get the actual.
Right. So the only reason I mention that is because, well, I guess. So I was going back and reading those chapters with Crocus, the original, where he's like describing what happens, and he says all of they say like the log poses all point to the same place. I guess that wasn't Crocus. That was probably in Fishman Island. So maybe, I don't know, whatever. Okay, so that was 39 years ago. 6 years later, 33 Blorsa, that's when Cat Viper, Dogstorm, and Kawamatsu all, the two of them wash along shore and the three of them kind of become part of Odin's crew. In 30 Blorsa, I'm going to keep saying it, I don't care. Whitebeard arrives in Wano, and there's also that capital procession where everyone looks badass. 2 weeks later, Odin hangs along a chain for 3 days and then meets Toki. So that's all 30 years ago. 28 years ago is a very eventful year. That's when Roger found out he was ill, or at least told everyone, right? Is that the chapter that he told everyone, Kendra?
Yeah, or I think it's like he realized he was sick and he hires Crocus. So I think maybe it's just the year he hires Crocus.
Okay.
Or but recruits him.
Where did it? Is that what it said? It was 4 years before he died. That.
Yes, I think that's in the Rayleigh chapter.
Okay.
So was his ship operating without a doctor before he got sick?
I'd like to think so. It was. It was like.
Or I'll just read it says it was a sickness that no one could treat. Roger was in a lot of pain, but Crocus, the lighthouse caretaker, who is also known as one of the best doctors in the land, was able to lessen the pain. We begged him to join. When did they say? And 3 years later, while prolonging Roger's life, we blah blah blah. We found Laughtail.
Okay, actually that makes sense. So I'm like trying to think of what's going on here. So this is when Odin is off with Whitebeard during this time. He doesn't meet Roger until 26. This is 28. So
here's a question. So 39 years ago is when, or 39 Blorsa is when Crocus joins the crew. 38 Blorsa is when Dr. Hiryaluk returns to Drum Island, trying to research the thing that can cure all sicknesses. Do you think Hiryaluk used to be the doctor on on the Roger Pirates, and he left to find a treatment, and they picked up Crocus instead?
Well, he would have been a really terrible doctor.
Yeah, he never actually had any. He never actually had any skills as a doctor. He was just a quack.
I'll raise you. Sorry. 28 Blorsa, Olivia leaves for the expedition, which is the same time Roger realizes he's sick. So, like, maybe she was on the crew.
It is kind of interesting to see these paths. Yeah.
Roger doesn't have. Well, we don't see any women on Roger's crew, but he never said like Whitebeard did that can't have women on the crew.
Yeah, although Whitebeard did have women on the crew, so it was kind of the opposite. Yeah, you had Whitey Bay is like there the whole time, and she
was like, Odin, you could never join, and then like an hour later, he was like, okay. Or 3 hours later. So
yeah, to be fair, he says one thing and then he just doesn't do it.
Maybe he changed his mind after Toki and he had all these kids running around and he's like, no more babies, and he like didn't realize that he could just not have babies.
Whitebeard would have loved babies. Are you kidding? All he wanted was family. That's all he cared about. Everyone loves Whitebeard. That's where I'm going with that. So I'm trying to think then. So we were kind of talking about this. He has 9 years between the time where he discovers that the end of the Grand Line isn't the end of the Grand Line, that there's this one hidden island, but doesn't put 2 and 2 together for 9 years.
When does he fight?
Or more.
When does he fight the Rocks Pirates?
Oh.
Ooh. Yeah, we didn't have that in the timeline.
What about the Battle of Ed War?
Or
the Battle of Ed War was that 2 years before he became King of the Pirates?
27 years ago, according to the wiki.
Okay, so 27. Okay.
It appeared in Chapter 0, so.
Right, so that's the year after the one we were up to. So let me back up so we could go forward. So 30 years ago is when Whitebeard arrived with Odin and the whole chain thing and Toki and going on Whitebeard's ship. 2 years Odin was on Whitebeard's ship, so this is year 28. That's when Momonosuke was born. That's when Whitebeard formed his divisions. That's when Blackbeard joined. And that's when Orochi presumably seized the throne. And also, as mentioned by Kendra, that's when the archaeologists from Ohara departed on their mission. And coincidentally, when Roger discovered he was ill. We kind of see that Roger goes back and forth along the Grand Line. So at this point, we have to assume in 28, Roger was with Crocus at Twin Peaks. Twin Capes. Great. Not the show. Easy to confuse, guys. 1 year later in 27 was the Ed War. So that's why Odin would not have been at the Ed War. Ed. I don't know if you have any explanation for that. Then, because of your name, it's the same as okay. In the year 26, Odin met Roger, and we had the fight between Whitebeard versus Roger, 3 days of it. Then Odin joined Roger, and then they visit. So this is between year 26 and 25. It's pretty clear. Well, actually, this is all in year 26, and I'll explain. So Odin met Roger. They went to Jaya, probably. That looked like Mocktown. We're not positive. Then they went to Skypiea, then Water 7, then Tequila Wolf. That's the bridge country, right?
In the East Blue, which is really weird.
Oh, it was in the East Blue?
Yeah, that's where. Sorry. Did you say Tequila Wolf?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tequila Wolf's in the East Blue.
Maybe it was the other end of the other part of where they're building the bridge.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure Oda.
Tequila Mockingbird.
I'm sure that might be a mistake from Oda.
That's a bar in my town, actually.
That's a good name. I'm gonna write that down. So yeah, Water 7, the bridge, Fishman Island. So that's why it doesn't make sense. They wouldn't go back to East Blue. Raijin, back in the New World, and then they get to Wano, and they say that's still in his 4th year of his journey. So that would still be year 26, because 30 was when he left, and 26 is 4 years later. But then at some point, it becomes year 25, because then they go to Zou, they go to that port town somewhere, and they arrive in Laughtale in 1 year before Roger dies in year 24. So you guys follow so far?
Yes.
Perfect. I'll post this up somewhere. In year 22, Kendra, you pointed out this is when Rayleigh met Hachi. We don't know where that was. At least, or Hachi saved his life. That's what he says, I think.
Yeah.
And this is also when Ohara's Buster Call happens. So it was 2 years after Roger's death, which we'll talk a little bit about, kind of that timing.
Is that also when Ace is born?
I think so.
Yes. It's also when Gaimon arrives at the island of rare animals.
Ooh, now that's a big one. And then 20 years ago, the Akazaya 9 jumped forward into time to today. And that's a very basic timeline, mostly revolving this flashback, but also major events occurring in other places around the world. So this discussion now that we're done with that, is going to revolve around some of the big theories in One Piece that we wanted to discuss, and also some of the big theories in One Piece that you wanted to discuss out there. That being said, you guys wanted us to discuss all of the big One Piece theories, so we probably won't get to all of those. So I just want to go around. Does anyone have, first off, what is your most pressing question that you want resolved by the end of One Piece regarding the bigger story here? That's a big question.
I guess
I want to know. I guess I want to know how the world came to be arranged in such a specific manner. I've been saying this for years.
Yeah, the world that's the big Ed theory.
It's not. The world isn't supposed to look like this. It was created that way by something, maybe continent pullers.
So Ed, you're a creationist, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like the world was created to separate us, man. We were all one. Is my point.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
It's really interesting because I used to like really hardcore think about the One Piece world as like an artificial planet, and like but there's a lot of what kind of bugs me, or like what blows my mind is there's a lot of history that predates the Void Century. Because like if one was going to reshape the entire world, one would do it within that 100 years that nobody gets to talk about anymore. But then there's like Alabasta is over 1,000 years old, and Shandora is over 1,000 years old. Zoe's over 1,000 years old. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that there should be history that predates.
Those are the islands. Those are the islands, not the continents. The continents of the Red Line, in particular, I think were put there for that purpose, and I think that created the Grand Line somehow. But like the islands that are there, I think, have always been there.
Well, one thing I'm wondering is if like we look at the Grand Line more as a collection of islands and not something that's isolated from the rest of the world. Because the Calm Belt's the real scary, because if there wasn't a Calm Belt there would be anybody could go to the Grand Line, anybody could go anywhere. It's the Calm Belt that one gives the world government its power. It makes them have ease of transport across the country. Like that feels like the most artificial part of the entire thing.
And it's not just like the Calm Belt, it's the fact that there's the SeaKings in them, and like even though only Poseidon can control them, they still mainly stay there and sometimes go to Fishman Island and like otherwise go around.
You hit the nail on the head, Kendra. I think there was an old Poseidon, let's not forget, before Shirahoshi was Poseidon or becomes Poseidon. So I mean, I'd assume that means that this is a real tinfoil hat.
Well, there was Joy Boy was there too with her, so.
Right. And was Joy Boy apologizing to Poseidon?
He was apologizing to the Mermaid Princess. Well, yeah, same thing.
Poseidon?
Yeah.
Who is Poseidon? And Joy Boy is the one who had the One Piece or whatever it was. So
we
what I'm saying,
so we don't actually know.
Don't say that, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
Roger just said
treasure.
He just said I wished I lived in Joy Boy's time. It doesn't mean Joy Boy put it there.
So that would be the Void Century, probably, or definitely, I think, right? No, so what I was going to say is, since Poseidon has the ability to control the SeaKings, it stands to reason that
Poseidon put them there.
Yeah, Poseidon. Poseidon, to extend your guys' theory, Poseidon put them there to separate the Grand Line and hide, I guess, whatever's there from the general populace outside of it, potentially, or at least make it more difficult to traverse.
And I have go ahead. I have a very silly SeaKing theory, but you go first.
No. Do your silly SeaKing theory first.
Basically, maybe the ancient kingdom turned into SeaKings, because Roger said he wouldn't die, and he probably meant like my legacy will live on. But what if he turned into a SeaKing? Because we did see him like eavesdropping on the sea, like listening to them, but they weren't all there. I think a few of them were missing.
Well, the SeaKings.
Are you saying that he's the SeaKing of the pirates?
No.
Writing that one down. So.
And also, okay, this is where it gets really dumb. But Trafalgar's name is Law's name is Trafalgar D. Water Law. Water D. If D is a dragon, which means dragon is dragon monkey, then it's water dragon like a SeaKing, and we have celestial dragons.
Oh, we're officially in tinfoil hat.
Sorry, this is my very sad. Roger was sick because he was turning into a SeaKing, so he can't breathe in air. It's a very dumb.
There is a good point there too, beyond the dragon, monkey, dragon. In that it is interesting the SeaKings are able to communicate. Luffy and not just with Luffy, but with each other, we kind of see them have that conversation toward the end of Fishman Island. So what the hell are they is a really good question. Since they do seem to be like this one force in the world that no one is confident about going near. And then also with the red line, and I really like what Ed said, the idea that the red line is what's artificially related is really interesting. And guys, we've seen some pretty crazy ass devil fruit powers. It's not ridiculous to think that either an ancient weapon or a devil fruit power is behind that also. Or like how even devil fruit powers get into that whole thing. Because that's a mystery.
So in the latest chapter, there's a panel where Rayleigh says, he's talking to Neptune, and he says, "So you're here for the weapon?" And he says, "No, we're following the people that called them weapons." And the phrasing on that, and I wish Steven was here because I'd love some like confirmation that's the intent. But the idea that Poseidon and Uranus and Neptune, or Pluton, that those are from a perspective weapons, but could have an additional purpose we haven't thought of yet, is really fascinating to me.
And was it the ancient kingdom who called them weapons, or was it the enemy who called them weapons?
Right. Like, is Joy, like, if they're following after, because like the ones who would call them weapons would be the people who wrote the poneglyphs, right? Because in the poneglyphs they're called weapons. Were the ancient weaponsmiths of Wano, were they the good guys or the bad guys? Like, were they serving? Here's a thing going into what the poneglyphs are. So far, so we've got the real poneglyph, which is the total history of the world, and we've got the road poneglyphs, which tell you the location of the One Piece. But the real poneglyphs so far that we've seen, have they all just been about these ancient super weapons?
That is a really good question. I'm gonna look on
let me Google that real fast.
And while he's doing that, I just want to say, like, Roger, he got all the road poneglyphs, and he only had a few of the other ones. So maybe the reason he couldn't do anything is because he didn't actually, like, he wrote on Skypiea poneglyph being like, "I will take this to the end of the lot, to the end," but then he doesn't.
So these are the poneglyphs we know. I'm basing this on One Piece Wiki, so if any of this is wrong, please let me know. I'm not even gonna say what's like on them, but I'll say what kind of set they are. So there's 4 historical poneglyphs. There's the one in O'Hara actually just had information about the name of the Great Kingdom, the thing that freaking Crocus got shot while trying to say.
And what is that
just say
name?
it.
Zach?
The name of the ancient kingdom is Bork. That's what we called them in episode like 5 years ago. There's one in Alabasta. That one is for Pluton. I remember Robin lied and said it had to do with it was
like
an
Kings
information
and Successions. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one was a weapon. The one in the Sea Forest was supposed to be is the Joy Boy one. The message was written by a man from the surface known as Joy Boy and apologizes to the people of Fishman Island for breaking his part of the promise, which involved returning to Fishman Island to carry out Noah's purpose. And then there's the one, so that one is not that one's not a weapon. There's the Shandora one at the base of the Golden Belfry, which described where Poseidon was. And also, that was it. The instructional one on Shandora in Upper Yard. Oh, that was just ancient text. I don't really think that's a poneglyph. But it is text in that one. The Zo is the road poneglyph. Totoland is the road poneglyph. There's one in Onigashima, and the one that
there are
used to be in Fishman
there are
Island.
2 other poneglyphs in Totoland as well.
Yeah, so I'll get to that. I'm going by like type. And then there's the unknown ones, which includes one that Robin found when she was a kid, one that Jinbei found and was taken to Tozo Land, as you recall. I forgot that it had that whole adventure. There was another one. She had 3?
Oh.
I guess she had
3, and then Jinbei brought another one, so now she has 4.
No, she had 2, and then Jinbei brought another one. She has 3.
And I kind of think Robin's unknown one might be the one that Roger found, and when the giants behind it was on their crew, I think that might be the same poneglyph.
It's pretty similar. Orochi's castle basement apparently also had one, not a road poneglyph though. I forgot Brooke just like offhandedly mentioned that. I completely forgot about that. And then, there's the one that you just mentioned, which might be the same one as the Robin saw, but who knows? Like, who the hell knows? So what were we talking about?
Sorry, I didn't realize.
I kind of wanted to backtrack to the SeaKings a little bit. A thing that I think is interesting about them is that we've found that they are kind of sentient and autonomous to a certain extent and seem like wise and actually kind of gentle. So the idea, I think that does kind of reinforce the idea that whoever can control the SeaKings might not necessarily be dangerous, depending on their intent and stuff like that. And so like the idea that the SeaKings are good guys actually kind of sits with me a lot better than this idea now. The original idea that they were scary monsters,
Well, Fishman Island, they call them, what was it, like docile creatures? What are they doing? Why are they attacking the bubble? Remember just this past chapter or 2 chapters ago?
And like, why was there, I think the Lord of the Islands, whatever is outside of Luffy's island, why is there a SeaKing there preventing people from leaving?
Well, that's a SeaKing. That was... Wasn't that just like a king? Yeah, I think it was a sea monster. Yeah.
Okay.
SeaKings. I think SeaKings are supposed to be like significantly bigger than just your average sea monster. I say that without really knowing if that's true or not.
Lord of the Coast, a relatively small SeaKing, but probably not a SeaKing.
Yeah. That's what it says on. I don't think there's been any confirmation one way or the other.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, I get a little confused because on the one hand, the ancient kingdom calls them weapons, correct? But so does the world government, which is supposedly the enemy.
Banana Wanis, whatever you call them, they eat SeaKings.
Oh,
apparently,
that's interesting.
Or crocodile just. I feel like that's totally something Crocodile just said, but it's possible. Just like how Mr. 3 was floating on that magic wood, so he didn't sink.
Yeah, or like they eat like larval SeaKings in the same way that like, oh yeah, you're a big tough guy for eating a baby sea turtle, but when it's a big sea turtle, you'd be a monster if you ate a sea turtle. So never mind. This is
you
really
would be
dark.
A monster. Yeah, that's terrible. Why would you do that? But
oh my god.
To be fair, most carnivores eat the young of other creatures because they're the easiest to catch, which is why they're monsters. But or if you eat veal, not to judge, but I mean, come on. I mean that's an interesting point. So I'm just trying to like figure out. And I was even like rereading through the O'Hara stuff in volume 41, like. So we have the quote unquote good guys because we don't know, the ancient kingdom, whatever it was called. And then we have the world government, which was supposedly their enemy. There's also Wano, which doesn't really fit in either as far as we know. I was kind of, when I was going back and forth on Twitter the other day, talking about how Wano is currently isolationist. We also learned that they were not always isolationist, and that's part of the reason why Odin is so hell-bent on figuring all this shit out, just like we are. So I am trying to figure out, they both the ancient kingdom and the world government both call ancient weapons. So I'm trying to figure out who wasn't calling them weapons, as Rayleigh kind of hinted.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's just the translation or the wording. I'm not quite sure.
And maybe like the poneglyphs don't call them weapons, maybe, even though like maybe it's just like people say like, oh, they lead us to ancient weapons, but maybe the stones actually just say like, oh, this is where this thing, like that's not fascinated by like the translation of the poneglyphs.
Yeah.
But like I don't know.
Sure, because if Robin already kind of knew of those as weapons and is just reading a poneglyph about Poseidon, she could say, "Oh, this is about one of those weapons."
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other? Oh, we could talk a little bit about the 3 weapons. Just since I think David, are you the one who brought up some pretty interesting theories about the one we know the least about? Yeah.
Yeah. I was doing some. I actually read your. I read your essay. I thought it was very nice. And there was I noticed that there was a skull emblem in Dr. Vegapunk's lab, and in your article, you said that it must be connected to Ors because it was a skull with 2 big horns coming out of it.
At the time, that's what we knew. Yeah.
And at the time, Ors was the guy the guy with big horns coming out of his head that was very powerful. But now we've got somebody else on the scene, and that's Kaido. And there's something about Kaido secretly being the Pluton in the same way that Shirahoshi is secretly the Poseidon. That
or you mean Uranus?
Or Uranus, sorry. I get my words confused. But the idea that Kaido is secretly Uranus because he's a big butthole. But like, there's something there, and either there's the idea that he's innately born with those qualities that make him indestructible, or that the Uranus is somewhere between the Poseidon, where it's a biological trait, and the Pluton, where it's a schematic, where perhaps Kaido, like, there's a blueprint to make a person into that. Maybe that's part of what Dr. Vegapunk was researching. On Dr. Vegapunk, because like we know that Kaido has connections to Vegapunk and Caesar Clown. We know that the Momonosuke ate an artificial version of Kaido's dragon fruit.
Very, very likely.
He was making. There's a lot of artificial dragons just palling around on Punk Hazard.
Yeah.
And if you're making if you're making Uranus the Titan of the Sky, making a giant flying dragon feels like something that has a good connection to that ancient concept.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, just a little background for people who are really confused, like what the hell is Uranus, which is reasonable that people think because it's barely been mentioned in the story. It was originally, I'm trying to remember when exactly the 3 ancient weapons were listed out. But we have Pluton, which has the history from Alabasta, and then Frankie and Iceberg had the plans, as you may remember, and he burnt them up. That's Pluton, and it's named after the god of the land in Greek mythology. And then there's
the underworld.
Underworld, yeah.
I'm sorry, the underworld. The underworld. Correct.
In Roman mythology, actually, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're all over the place, right? Because Poseidon is Poseidon Roman? No, Poseidon's Greek, right?
Poseidon's Greek. Yeah, it would be Neptune.
And Uranus is Roman, because I know the planets are all Roman.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is that there might be a fourth ancient weapon named Jupiter.
That would be I like anything named Jupiter.
Or maybe Zeus is actually a secret weapon.
Oh.
What's the Roman version of Zeus?
Jupiter.
Oh, it is Jupiter. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm learning things today. Poseidon is the god of the sea, and as we mentioned before, the poneglyph in Skypiea pointed to Fishman Island, and it's going to be or is Shirahoshi. Yeah. And then what?
I don't know. I think we all know that the Uranus is going to come from space, and Enru will be riding it.
What I kind of like is that you have a person and a thing. So maybe Uranus is a place, like person, place, and thing, even though it's an English thing. So maybe doesn't have, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if that translates. I don't know. Like, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. And then, I talked about it in the chat, but I have a very silly thing for that. Maybe Pluton isn't actually a battleship, but I think they said it could destroy things. But if it's just like to refuel the army or something, so it's a restaurant at sea. So it's kind of like Pluton accidentally repeated. But I think like Frankie would have said something if it wasn't actually a battleship. But I do like the idea of like the weapons not actually being weapons, but that's
Frankie thinks everything's a battleship.
Yes.
How much did Frankie look at?
He made himself a battleship.
Like,
Frankie looked through them. Like, he spent time looking through them, from what I recall. I think there was like even a montage in the anime, like, and he's looking through them.
Being like, I just couldn't remember how much time he spent on them. Yeah,
he might have to memorize, but that might just be me like thinking he does because they want to kill him for it.
He's smart enough to remember
he's a cyborg.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the implication, is that he has them memorized.
Yeah. Inside Outside on the Pluton actually being the Thousand Sunny, or possibly Frankie's body itself.
People have mentioned that, and I actually kind of like that theory, or at least that he incorporated parts of maybe what were in Pluton. We don't even know like what, who, where, when the Pluton is. Like, we know nothing about it.
Yeah, I guess Robin knows where it is, unless did the one that she found that said where Pluton, or the Alabasta one, did it just say Water 7, or did it say something else? I don't think she's actually told anyone.
Which one?
The one in Alabasta. It said where Pluton was.
The one in Alabasta said how to make Pluton, I think.
No, that's what the plans are. The plans are how to make Pluton.
You're right. Oh, maybe it said where. That's a good question.
Yeah. Because she didn't tell us. Yeah.
I'm just reading. It says the location. You're right. So that means they're looking for plans for something that exists. So I guess to like recreate it, the world government.
Yeah.
Which sounds.
Yeah. Well, and Frankie said that I think, if I might be remembering wrong, but I believe Frankie says that the original Pluton was made by the shipwrights in Water 7.
Oh yeah.
And that's why they had the documents to begin with.
That sounds right.
Which is, again, one of those crazy things where you're like, Water 7's not 1,000 years old. There's no traditions that go beyond the Void Century, and yet, here's this place that, like, the technology on a Pluton can be made by craftsmen. And like the idea, plus that kind of ties in with the poneglyphs themselves. The idea that in the past, all of these different craftsmen, the people of Wano, the people of Water 7, were all in some way pulled into this conflict, and their skills were used to make. Like, it's not amazing that the Kozuki clan was stonemasons, but it is amazing that they made the poneglyphs. It's not amazing that what? Yeah.
No, I just want to say one thing related to this. Although you could finish, David, if you had more.
One thing that I am wondering is maybe even like the idea of a Pluton isn't necessarily the like the schematic, like weapon systems or deck layout. Maybe it's a method of creating a ship, like, say, using the wood of Adam to make an indestructible battleship.
Although there is a location in which it exists, so I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, I'll say this flashback in particular has kind of solidified one important thing that we're seeing more and more as we kind of head toward the end of this, and that's that the One Piece world is, even though it's so large, is so intimately connected in every way that everything keeps coming back from before. And I think this is actually something that Greg has mentioned in the past, and that's that every time Luffy says goodbye to someone, he says "see ya," meaning he'll see you later, like he'll see them again. He'll never actually say goodbye to people. But I think like one of the really interesting things here is like, oh, this was there. Everything has such significance in all of the major parts of the timeline. So Void Century, before Void Century, Roger's time, and today. And it's kind of that like March of Destiny kind of thing that One Piece has in spades, and kind of that thing that Lost used to have until it completely turned into what it became. It's an interesting concept, and like that overarching idea of, I think Kentra mentioned it earlier, like Roger saying, "I will not die," and Ace's promise. I mean, we all remember how he kept that, and how I'll never die. But it's kind of that inherited will idea, the will of D, all of that stuff. I'm kind of, and even we mentioned the SeaKings being like reincarnations, possibly. Like, do you guys have any like ideas of what you think that all is leading to, or what that is?
Like on a thematic sense, kind of. So I've been doing a deep dive into recently Skypiea, and that's been taking forever. Yesterday, when I preparing for this, I went through my previous deep dive, and I dug out a couple things that kind of connect to the idea of destiny and legacy in One Piece. One is just this offhand comment that Robin says to a guy who is destroying ruins in Skypiea. She says, "The site you destroyed was a priceless treasure. History always repeats itself, but we can never return to the past." You don't seem to understand that. There's a conception in that line that's really, really interesting to me, in that time is both cyclical yet linear. Like, the things we do repeat themselves, but it's not like they come back. It's just that they show up again and again. We repeat the same actions that happened in the past. In One Piece, a lot of One Piece is based off of legacy. A lot of One Piece is based off of people. Like, our heroes have dreams, but almost universally, our heroes' dreams aren't just their own dreams. They're fulfilling the dreams of somebody who was there before them. Sanji wants to find the All Blue, but he's not just finding the All Blue for himself. He's also finding it for Zeph, who believed in him. Usopp doesn't just want to be a great pirate. He wants to be a great pirate like his dad, Yasopp. On and on and on. Each character you can point to and say, this person, Nico Robin, is not just researching the history for herself, but for her mother and her entire family. Everybody has some sort of legacy. The most important panel I've on Twitter, I'll retweet this every 2 months or whatever, but the most important panel in One Piece is still Blackbeard yelling to Luffy in Mocktown, "The dreams of people never die." There's an idea that as long as we are working to fulfill the dreams, and basically as long as we are pursuing the legacy of the people who came before us, they're somehow still present. History doesn't ever die as long as we are following and respecting it.
And hear Luke's speech in Drum Island.
Luke's speech. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about Drum Island is when Luffy stands with Look's flag, he says, "This flag stands for a dream. This flag's not going to burn." And then later, what does Luffy do? He goes to Eni's lobby and burns the world government's flag to the ground, because that flag doesn't stand for a dream. It has nothing behind it. It has no legacy, and therefore it can die. So whatever happens in right now in One Piece, we are seeing all of these things in the past, and all of these things in the past are ringing true to what we've seen in the present. And on one hand, you can make your George Lucas, "That's like poetry, it rhymes," jokes. But on the other hand, there's something beautiful about when Gold Roger realized he had months to live. He turns himself in and says, "I'm never going to die." And then he inspires pirates to follow in his dreams, because as long as pirates go on adventures, there is some part of Gold Roger that will never pass from the face of the earth. Whatever happens in the future of One Piece will connect to the past, and will be somewhere around there.
Yeah, well said.
I get to follow up with kind of not as serious stuff, but kind of just that we have that inherited will, and then we have actual inherited stuff, like the lineage factor, bloodline elements, as well as the will of D, which whatever that is, I don't know.
But here's the thing about legacy and will, is that in as much as there are some direct blood connections, I'm not saying that there aren't any in One Piece, but by and large, legacy is it's in the devil fruits. Devil fruits don't come from the same tree. When there is a legacy of devil fruits, but they pop up wherever. It's their legacy is horizontal, not vertical. It's not just bloodline. So and I think that one of the beautiful things is with Luffy, Ace, and Sabo. They're all people who should have very clear blood legacies. Luffy should be a revolutionary. Sabo should be a king. Ace should be the king of the pirates. But instead, they trade their legacies almost with one another. Not exactly, but almost with one another. Because it's the blood isn't important. It's the dream. Dream is more important than blood.
And you know what you just brought up also, talking about the flags reminds me that, Oda purposely put back to back. I don't know why I never put 2 and 2 here together, but he put the burning the flag of Luffy saying, "That's my enemy. Burn that flag down, SeaKing." And then in that same flashback is when Crocus reveals the ancient kingdom had an enemy, and that enemy is the world government. The same enemy. So there again, I mean, across thousands of years, you have I'd go so far to say an inherited will, or at least an inherited desire or something behind Luffy not caring or knowing about any of the ancient kingdom stuff, is doing kind of the same thing that happened 1,000 years ago. And I'm almost positive that before the series ends, we're going to get a flashback to what caused the Void Century, in some regard, kind of like almost like the Nolan Kagura stuff. And I'm super curious to see all of the things that we're at least supposed to see resonate into the present day.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
One of the things on our docket is to talk about what is the will of D. What does the D mean? What is the D is both really funny to say out loud with my mouth, but also like one of the biggest burning questions, because it's been there from page 1, and it's also one of the mysteries that has literally had characters stop, look at the camera, and say, "The will of D is important, kids." I mean, Oda straight up says, like, "Hey, kids, you see how some of the characters have D in the name? You should pay attention to that." So, like, that's been, like, gnawing at us for a while. And the question is, what does the D stand for? And I know we've all got our theories. I know that there's dreams, there's dragon, there is the half moon theory, which is advantageous. The one I've been thinking about most recently is Dawn, because in where is it? It's what Toki says in her prophecy, that after a bunch of moons have passed, you'll finally see the dawn will finally come. Dawn is a really powerful word whenever it shows up in One Piece. I mean, for God's sakes, the thing was originally going to be titled Romance Dawn. And again, going back to the idea of history as a thing that repeats but also moves forward, whatever happened in the Void Century locked off, both drove people to not explore, and also like literally reshaped the world in such a way. I mean, again, we're hypothesizing here, but it reshaped the world in such a way that, like, the place where all of the really good, interesting, amazing stuff is physically locked off by the from the rest of the world. The Grand Line is separated. Wano's borders are closed. The world government controls the flow of information and exports between nations. There's an idea of progress has been halted, so now it can just exist in a state of equilibrium. We're in the world of One Piece is in a constant state of twilight. It's never going forward. It's never going back. And one day, and I think where the show is going, whatever the One Piece is and whatever the One Piece does, is going to finally break through, and there will be a new dawn. The sun will rise and set, and history may repeat itself, but it will keep going forward day by day by day, and progress will finally be made as people come together.
And just like whoever remade the world, they were like influenced or something, that they somehow rebuilt it to have a treasure hunt built into it, that all the magnetism and just like everything leads towards that end. And like, if you were the enemy, why would you create something that led to something that else that would lead you to like the big answer? So maybe it was that the ancient kingdom did it because they knew they were going to lose, and that was their like dying thing or something, or it's the other way around. But just like the fact that this like treasure hunt is just like built into the world as well is what confuses me. I don't know.
Back to Ed's original thing.
How Wano has the skill to inscribe poneglyphs in the first place. So they obviously have some connection there.
I think that this latest chapter shed light on that is interesting to me is that it wasn't until they found the One Piece that they learned that Roger and his crew learned the secret of the people of the D too, right? And so, that's interesting to me because I guess I had kind of assumed that like maybe 3/4 of the way through or maybe leading into the final arc, we'd No.
When we check in with Raleigh, there's a flashback and it shows him talking to Roger and he like leans in and says like, "Hey, you ever wonder about the D in my name?" Like, because he says like, you know what, you hear what the world government's calling me? Gold Roger. It's not Gold Roger. It's Gold D Roger. You want to know the secret of that?
Is that?
Oh, that's right. It's with Whitebeard. Never mind. Sorry. Right.
Because in that final chapter, there's that part that they say, on that day, we learned the entire truth of the world, the 100-year void, what the people of the D are, what the ancient weapons are. It seems like kind of there was this like big revelation at the very end of their journey.
But then when like Rayleigh and Roger first met up, Roger said, "Let's turn the world upside down." So like he wasn't just after treasure. Yeah. Like he kind of knew what was going on beforehand or something.
What Rayleigh tells the Straw Hats when they meet him is, we learned everything, but I think we got it wrong. I think there's stuff we don't understand. We got most of it, not all. And if you guys go slow and don't repeat the mistakes of O'Hara or the Roger crew, you might come to a different conclusion.
And one thing, I'm looking at the wiki and it says, according to Tamago, the real poneglyphs are in fact comprised of only 9 poneglyphs. So I wonder, I don't think Roger got them all. I don't think he actually got the Rio poneglyph. I think he found the One Piece and the treasure, but because they said they only had a few poneglyphs. They had all 4 of the road and only a few poneglyphs. A few's not 9, but that might be me reading too much.
Yeah, so I'm looking through, this is for those who are following along, chapter 818, which is really consequential. It's when they're inside the whale and Zoe, and 819. And Cat Viper is discussing how the creation of the poneglyphs happened, basically. And first off, it happens 8 centuries ago, he says. So that's right, correct me if I'm wrong, that's right after the Void Century ends? Because the Void Century was from 900 to 800 years ago?
I think once you start talking centuries, there's enough room for bleed that like maybe it happened right at the tail end, and that was the last thing that people did before they went into hiding.
Yeah, I just mentioned that because the reason, obviously, that they built these indestructible stone documents is because they were going away or something bad was happening here. And that even before that, I think the Kozuki clan had been known as stonemasons and I guess and then they passed down their ability beyond that. And that the reason, and I've completely forgot, that the reason Oden was put to death was because Kaido and Orochi were, specifically Kaido, was trying to find the way to read the poneglyphs. Yeah, he was trying to decipher them.
I thought it's because he wanted to open the border, but I don't know.
No. I'm sorry. Well, he did. Well, that was his last message, but I'm sorry. He wanted the information about what he saw in Laugh Tale. He wanted to know the secret of the world. That's what Kaido was looking for. And, especially with the stuff with Shanks in the Reverie, I forgot who has been our resident person saying Shanks is secretly evil. But, I'm wondering how Shanks and Kaido and Big Mom's individual kind of momentum toward, I assume they're trying to also find whatever the One Piece might be. I'm curious as to what their individual goals are and how they relate to the world government, and then also who the hell that guy is at the top of the world government who has Emu or Eam or whatever we're calling him, who has that cut up picture of Luffy, Blackbeard, and Shirahoshi, I think was the last one. I'm pulling it up now on my.
Because I think there's a knife in Shirahoshi, and he's holding Vivi's or something.
Yeah, Vivi was involved too, right?
Yeah, and he's holding Vivi's picture, but the ones that are cut up are Luffy and Blackbeard. who we assume are like the two that are meeting at the end of the day here. And I'm really curious how he or she fits into all of this. I think it's also too soon probably to speculate, just because there's so little information about it. And what they're referring to as a great purge that they were gonna, and if Vivi's okay, and if Sabo's okay, and what the hell's happening with all that. Yeah, so do you guys have any other theories or anything you want to mention? Otherwise, we could go to some questions that people had.
My big question is, what are trees? Because like trees are important in One Piece in a very strange way. There's the tree of knowledge in Ohara. There's the big tree Adam. There's big old tree Eve. And like having an Adam and Eve and a tree of knowledge, that seems like something really important. The Shandorans. I think no. It's the the Shandorans. They believed that the trees were held the souls of their ancestors. Like there's something. There's something about trees in One Piece that hasn't fully been explained yet.
And like I almost wonder, did someone like take the wood from Ohara from the like wisdom tree or whatever it was called? Tree of knowledge. I wonder if it was strong as an Adam tree. And I kind of want to go back to the Will of D stuff really quick, unless we want to talk about something else.
No, go for it.
Good, my stuff. I had stuff I wanted to talk about, but I can't wait till.
Okay, sorry. For Will of D, I think like Will of D is kind of like one of my favorite things, just because I was spoiled about the Will of D, but I didn't know Roger was a D. So when Doctorine dropped that, I was just like, what?
Wait, Kendra, how could you be spoiled about a thing we have no idea what the hell it is? Just that it is a thing.
I didn't know Roger was a D. I didn't know Roger was a D. I knew people were wondering about the D. I just thought it was because of Luffy. But then you find out that Roger was a D, and I'm like, what? Which I thought was really cool. And just like, I wonder, how can you pass on the D if you don't know what it means? So how do you decide if that baby is D worthy or not? Like, was Law's
That's a good question
sister
too.
a D? And like, if only one of your parents is a D, are you a lowercase D? And this is me just being like straight up silly.
Like a recessive trait.
Yeah, but like, do the women pass on the knowledge, but all of them are dead, so they can't? And like, or is there like a certain age that you get told what the D means, and that Luffy became a pirate before he could, and Dragon either rebelled once he learned what it meant, or rebelled before he learned? I like the half moon idea, or like a smile, or like the spaceship idea, I think is a recent one, and that the giant straw hat in
what the hell is that?
It makes me so angry. Anytime I look at it, it just fills me with rage because I just don't understand why it's in a freezer.
Well,
is it alive?
Why is there an egg on Roger's ship?
I think increasingly more and more we're seeing like super giant creatures and beings involved in the world's history with like Oars and Zoe and all that stuff. So like it could just be a very important giant person's straw hat.
Or Doflamingos. He's a big guy.
Kind of like the voice of all things. Okay, this is good. This is gonna get a little weird. Okay, but the voice of all things is basically telepathy a little bit, because you can like hear someone's voice, and Roger's able to hear poneglyphs, but Luffy can't. So maybe he has to like train it more. I just wonder, and snails are telepathic as well and can talk to each other.
Let's not get the snails involved in this.
There was also a chat in the chat. We went on like a snail rampage. The snail can rampage, but I don't know if maybe there's like you unlock something and you're able to like broadcast and do a podcast to everyone. That's the One Piece.
Well, we were talking about like trees and nature, and I was going to bring up like the voice of all things could play into that. Like, I don't know if like these like some kind of spirit or sentience in nature in One Piece that hasn't really.
I guess.
Or just kind of like a oneness with nature, like like the Force or something, you know.
I was going to say that, yeah. I mean, we all know Oda is a huge One Piece fan. One Piece fan, Star Wars fan. It's been a long day already.
I think David has a Star Wars theory, but what was I going to say? Actually, no. Now I forget. Oh, I was going to say Toki could probably answer a lot of our questions, but Oda's a coward.
Yes,
and we'll find later. But I was going to say Oda's a coward. There we go. Give us Toki.
Maybe if you shame him about it, he'll come out and he'll just make Toki the main character. Like, look, that's the thing. Toki is a bit of a, I don't know if MacGuffin's the right word, but she's like a walking answer book. She probably knows, whether she knows it or not, she probably knows a lot of the answers that we're asking questions about. But
she's kind of written as the MacGuffin who has babies and gets sick and then dies.
Yeah,
she's like One Piece mom.
She is. I mean, well, we don't know if she dies yet. We assume she dies.
If you have the answers, you gotta die.
Good point. Good point. Good point.
Story operates.
No, but I mean,
yeah. I hope she's alive. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be super. I mentioned earlier, she is the only character in a flashback who has the potential to show up after, in the current day, just the same as she was in the flashback. Like, I think that would be a super cool story device. And also, yeah, the problem is, I think you could, I think Toki could, of course, be a very interesting character. I agree with that. But the problem is, because she knows too much. So if Oda let her kind of just talk and do her thing and just be open about all the shit that happened, she would reveal the whole story to us. That's the problem. So of course I want to hear what she has to say, but also she might give us a little too much for Oda's taste.
And obviously, like, Roger would probably say the same thing as Luffy, like, oh, no spoilers. And maybe she's like, oh, I knew you guys wouldn't want spoilers, so I won't say anything. But I'm just mad that when she told the Whitebeard pirates she was from the past, they just laughed at her, even though they have a Phoenix boy.
Yeah, like, no, I agree with that.
So I don't know. I'm very bitter about Toki, but like, I get it. She'll probably get a cool moment, but I'll just be mad that Oda didn't like let her be a person at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting to judge things until the end. Just, I mean, I like, if it ended now, I would agree with every single thing you're saying. But also, we know that there's more coming. That Odin self-sacrifices for the sake of his country and for his vassals, as they say in volume 82, and that I don't even think they ever really call him a hero. They just call him self-sacrificing. Like, he is willing to go that extra mile to do. Not even self-sacrificing. He's driven. He's got like a drive that sacrifices everything else around him. I think is probably the way to put that.
And I think for when Roger dies, there's 4 years, or no, I think there's 4 years until Odin dies, or like a give or take. But I just wonder, like, do you think he went back with Whitebeard at all, or did he just stay with his kingdom? Do you think he left again? Because there's 4 years that he can do whatever he wants.
I assume I think they said he returned, and I have to look back. There was also that kind of flashback when he was in silhouette the whole time, and I think they explain. I forget. I think that's like chapter 920 something. But the problem is, and this arc kind of has the same problem, less so than Dressrosa had it, but this flashback has also kind of been cut up several times over the course of this arc, which was kind of the problem with like Heroes and Rebecca's story, amongst other problems. But it's that they told it like 3 different times from 3 different vantage points. And we're kind of getting that here. I think less of a problem. So the problem is I don't remember all the little details, but I guess that's better, because if I remembered all the details, I would not really care what happens next because I would know. Okay. Do you guys have any other comments? There's probably like 8,000 things I've wanted to mention that I forgot about.
I did have some stuff I wanted.
Oh, Shannon.
Fast.
Yeah, please.
I get really invested in like small interpersonal stuff, and then when I don't get like payoff on it, it drives me crazy. And the stuff I was wondering about is like what happened to Zoro's eye? What was the message Smoker had for Luffy that Aokiji did not deliver? And what is the blackmail or dirt or whatever that Aiba has on Crocodile? And I'm just like waiting, very sort of excited for if they pay off. Like the Smoker thing, I don't know if they'll ever pay off. But that kind of stuff, I'm like, I wonder when this will come back in.
So do you think we'll see whatever happened to Zoro's eye, or whatever secret ability it might have in this arc, since this is kind of like it's potentially Zoro's big moment in this arc?
There is. It might also just end up being like Sanji's other eye, and because like people for years were wondering what was underneath his hair, and then the answer was nothing.
His eyes is fine. He's just like closing it.
Different
it's just
swirl.
It's curled a different way. I don't know what it'll be. I'm not super invested in it being some kind of mysterious thing. I'm interested to know how Zoro got the scar, because I feel like Oda has something planned for it, or maybe he'll just be like an SBS, like, oh, it looked cool. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I just think it's an interesting like mystery on a much smaller scale.
Yeah, the story and the relationship between him and Mihawk is so interesting and has yet to be filled in. And I think, obviously that relates to his missing eye. Like, one could guess that it might be that he, got it scratched training with Mihawk, assuming that. And so just through the story of like what happened to his eye, you actually would get filled in a lot more with like how they relate to one another now and how their relationship has grown or changed, which I am very interested in.
Yeah, Mihawk's a free agent too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so is Kuzan, since you mentioned him before.
Yeah.
Do we know who's going after Mihawk?
I don't think they said. The only one we know is Kobe's going after Hancock. Mm-hmm. And that he actually did not get that promotion because there was a correction, I think, in the latest volume. So, I mean, the interpersonal relationship point is a good one. Like, we recently learned that Blackbeard never sleeps, and Blackbeard is a canon mystery. Like, there's so much. Yeah.
I almost don't think that's real. I think it's almost just childish rumors. I know everybody latched onto it, but I was like, this is just Shanks and Buggy, like, shit-talking together. But I don't know.
That could also go either way with One Piece.
Yeah, it's One Piece.
It could be some deep, important thing. Sanji's nosebleed ended up being a plot point. Like, I don't know.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, like I don't... there's something like when they said, "Oh, that guy, he never sleeps." Like, I thought it was really interesting that, oh, hey, the guy that said people's dreams never die has never had a dream in his life.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's more like a poetic thing than like a literal thing, because of course the idea, what the dreams we're talking about are goals, not like fantasies. But
yeah, I would need the Japanese
kind of there too.
Yeah. I mean, the really cool thing about One Piece, and also sometimes the most annoying thing about One Piece, is that every single character, except for Senor Pink, I don't know, could have a really interesting backstory, and could have like a really interesting characterization. But we don't have time to go through, how many Vivre cards are there now? We don't have time to go through thousands upon thousands of stories about all of these different people, or even like tens and hundreds of like just some of the ones we're naming right now. Like, yeah, what happened to Mihawk? How did he become the strongest swordsman? You could pick a random character in this series and be interested in how they got to where they currently are, or how they got to where they're going, or what is their motivation, or just about any random character.
Like, what kind of annoys me about this flashback, and maybe a bit Wano in general, is just like the lack of interpersonal connections with people. Like, for the flashback, we're like, there's the big moment where Toki goes like, "Oh, I'll divorce you if you don't just leave me here." But then, like, their relationship, we didn't even know they were married, first of all. And, like, the relationship was just them meeting each other, and next thing you know, they have kids.
Well, he saved her. So they fall in love with you when you save them.
That's what I'm saying. He just repeated the Rebecca thing again. Like, it's
also he's like this big player who's been like going to the pleasure district since he was a little kid, and then he just immediately settles down with this woman too.
And like
it's kind of
kidnapping women, but they can leave whenever they want. Like, I guess that was just Oda telling us he's straight, because why? Like, that was the only point of it. Why else was it in there? It's just it just makes me so angry. But I know that it's gonna get. You might get an explanation that I don't know.
I think it's just a Paul Bunyan thing. Like, here's the ridiculous shit he did. I don't think there's
kidnap women. That's what I'm just like.
I don't know that. I don't know anything about Paul Bunyan. So who knows what Paul Bunyan
just
did.
had like a blue what do you call them? Cow.
Bull.
Yeah.
He did. Yeah, he did have a blue bull.
But like,
that's verifiable.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Joey.
Oh, I think it was just supposed to sort of like be the sort of mythical machismo thing, which unfortunately, doesn't read super great. But
well, and like, it's again, like the kidnapping thing is real hinky, but it's also there for the men too. Like he leaves a town and the entire island tilts to the left because all the men want to follow him. Like,
yeah. I think they even say that's something that like not a human does, but like a oni or like a yokai does. Yeah. But then there's not really any payoff for it. So I'm wondering maybe like when he does die, they'll also list those as part of his crimes again. Like, I just don't see the point of, like, it's to hype him up, but they hyped up Katakuri with just saying he doesn't lie down. Like, we get this long laundry list of stuff that's but I don't know.
Odin is a very difficult character generally, in that he represents both a lot of Japanese folklore that we here, I'm assuming, except for Joey, don't have a lot of background about. And so often, you know, a lot of this stuff I think is just getting lost on us. Secondly, he is a guy who is brash and brash in the good and brash in the bad sense. He is someone who's supposed to be larger than life, but also is obviously someone who's really, I think I said last chapter, as far as we have seen so far in the story, is out for his own interests, and that's it. We talked about the inherited will thing a little bit, and I forgot to mention that the interesting part about that as it relates to this backstory is that Odin is, you know, on this quest, and when he says it in his journal, he says something along the lines of like, there was some mysterious force pulling me toward it that I couldn't explain, but it came out of my mouth before I could even, you know, when he accepted going with Roger. And I think that's the case even with why he had to go and continue when he left Wano that second time, when he was there for just a few hours. And he definitely showed that he wanted to stay. And I think they say something along the lines of like, if he turned around, he would not have completed the journey. So he had to keep his back to them. I mean, this is like very Oda storytelling, like to the extreme. Like this is
couldn't they just have like taken a poneglyph rubbing and just brought it back to him? Like they could just come back.
I mean, I don't. One Piece, it's like about adventure and
and I mean, it's the same. I think it's the same exact thing that Olvia did to Robin. I'm not saying it's right or cool to do to abandon your kid or abandon your wife and kids.
Yasop, that one's pretty brutal. It's like your mom's gonna get sick and die, and I'm gonna go hang out with Shanks. Bye.
I just want the Apazai 9 like love him so much, but he left them twice. One time because he literally saw a ship and was like, I'm going there. And the second time, at least, he just likes to adventure. Right. Like, they're not going to Raftel for any specific, like, glorious reason. It's just for shits and giggles, but which is fine. Like, they're pirates, but it's like, I don't know.
But that's also Oda hyping up the drama of it, though. Like, it's supposed to be, I think it's Oda saying, like, not only is it adventurous, but it's like a little tragic, you know, and you know, and so I think that's what he's going for,
right? And also, like, there's again, like, One Piece fundamentally isn't a comic about responsibility. It's a comic about dreams, and so none of those characters dream about have any dreams about having families, so they don't take care of their families, which is, again, shitty, but in keeping with the character. Whereas you have someone like Whitebeard or Bellamere, who their dream is to take care of a family, is to raise somebody and to be responsible. And as a result, they like, it's good. The comic says, oh, it's really good that these guys settled down, or that these guys took in a bunch of kids. Again, like, it's a weird moral to have. Like, you don't want kids? Go out and be a pirate. But again, like, it's real bad that Yasop didn't raise Usopp. Also, Usopp has a dream to be a pirate now, and now he's a pirate on the high seas.
And he's doing it to impress his dad, which is definitely, I mean, psychologically that tracks.
Yeah. But then, like, Roger had like 2 babies on his crew, and like, so it's just kind of like, can you bring family along, or can't you?
I think someone may have mentioned this, but Shanks was probably like, no babies. I know what happens when you bring babies on a crew. Look at what I turned into. It's not good. You don't want to be this. You don't want to be this guy here.
And I just thought, I guess Toki got sick just so she wouldn't be at Raftel to reveal stuff, or it's like because Toki got sick and then Buggy got sick. So I wonder if something on the Grand Line.
No, Toki had to be. Toki had to be back in Wano to give the tragedy of whatever is going to happen to her. They are for Odin to find when he comes back.
Like, I wonder if she mentioned she was naive when we first saw her. Like, she always gets fooled. So I hope Orochi fools her just so she can do something. Because I think that'd be cool.
I definitely wish that we got more with Toki. I wish that we got more with.
Well, we're not done. We're not done.
Relationship.
Do you think the flashback is over? Because some people think it's over.
No.
No, we're gonna go.
We have to see Odin get boiled.
No, we haven't got into the tragic part, and we all know flashbacks are all about weeping hysterically, and that's it. Yeah. So I mean, we're not there yet.
It's also worth noting that Toki's dream wasn't to find the One Piece. Toki's dream is to go to Wano because she's a Wano boo.
Yeah, she is a Wano boo. Exactly. Very well said, David.
And do we know if Odin has his magic swords yet?
He always had his magic sword. Yeah, he had them from the beginning. Yeah. You mean, what was it? Enma and, what was the other one?
Because he uses 2 sword style.
Yeah, but I wasn't sure if those were just like normal swords because they weren't really doing anything extra special besides, I guess, cutting the boar. But even that
they didn't have like a special power. It took a lot to wield them. That was the whole theory behind it.
Because when Zoro accidentally cut the cliff face instead of just cutting what he wanted to cut, so it's like they seem super strong or something.
The other one going to
his arm as well. Yeah, I don't know. There seems to be some like hockey thing going on with those swords, and I just haven't seen that with Odin.
In One Piece, there's an idea that at a certain quality level, swords gain a certain amount of will themselves. That they are in some small way alive. That's what happens when Zoro tosses the cursed sword up into the air. He's like, "All right, we'll see if me and this sword get along." Isn't it something like when Zoro's wielding his new sword? Because I can't remember the names of these darn things. There's the idea that through use, he has unlocked a quality of it that was not there before. That a masterclass sword has to be in the hands of a masterclass swordsman in order to reach its true power and potential.
And then the Ringo people would live their entire lives with their swords and die with their swords. So maybe there's a bit of that inherited will in swords as well. Like you leave your mark. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Like Odin's swords might not have been Odin has good swords because he's from Wano. They didn't become great swords until they were wielded by Odin. And after he left them behind, they continued to have some of his greatness within them.
Before we move on to viewer questions and probably a lightning round, I do want to say it's been really cool doing this because I never get to kind of have that 30,000 foot view on the series because we're always talking about chapter by chapter. And it's really worth it, I think, to go back. And one of the, I'll do it again at some point. It's how many volumes? 95 right now. It's not it's a time consuming effort, but to go back and see everything with new perspective as you go through the series, because it is kind of amazing. All these little things that Oda planted, and you kind of know when you're reading through it initially, oh, that seems like something I should pay attention to, but you forget it 50 volumes later. And One Piece has kind of that unique ability, because it has been running for so insanely long. Did we talk about Laugh Tale? Just since that was the big thing that happened at the end of the chapter, I don't want to completely overlook that. I mean, there's tons of other things like hockey we barely talked about and what that has to do. The voice of all things we touched on. There's a lot of, trust us, there's a lot of topics.
What do you want to say
discuss
about Laugh Tale?
I mean, I guess just we talked a little bit about Joy Boy and One Piece and how that could be connected, but I guess I think David put it really well that what they found on Laugh Tale or the One Piece or the treasure or whatever you want to call it, they weren't able to completely and fully understand it. But then again, what are they laughing at besides a giant sand sculpture of a penis, as we mentioned last week?
Well,
David, do you want to put...
Oh, well, all right. I got theories. I got lots of theories.
Yay.
But one thing, the thing that's been kind of bouncing in my head a whole bunch is how. Okay, so in Zoe, when they are looking at the first road poneglyph, and Luffy and everyone's getting really excited that, oh hey, we're gonna go find the One Piece now. What Luffy says is not, all right, we're gonna go find the One Piece. He says, all right, we're gonna find the place where the One Piece may or may not be. It's really interesting. That's really interesting for your hero to say. Especially for Luffy, who would never have qualifiers on anything he says. What if, it has been, time has passed, and thinking about the map, insanely, the closest they have ever, the Straw Hats have been to the One Piece was back when they were on Reverse Mountain. Because fundamentally, if it is the last island in the Grand Line, it has to be spitting distance from.
I mean, but it's not. Because that's where the Lodestar Islands
move linearly. Linearly.
Or it's in space. Guys, it's in space.
That's the thing. Again, talking about One Piece, the thing set in the world where things are circular but also progress linearly. The Grand Line goes in a straight. Goes in one direction and one direction only. The whole point of Reverse Mountain is that it's a gate that forces you in at one point and one point only, and then you go along it.
I mean, we've definitely taken it for granted that just seems like a good storytelling device, but yeah, maybe it's part of the story itself as to why it's so weird like that. I mean, I personally, I think Ed probably subscribes to this theory as well. It would be a pretty cool concept if you were correct in your theory, which we named the episode after last week, that you just get to a certain point, you have to take the punchline up into space, and then you end up at Laugh Tale.
Yeah, so one of the ideas I had was that they get to Laugh Tale, and so we've had the Grand Line and the Red Line. Well, if you're going to be laughing at the end, you must find the punchline, which would kick you up into space. There have been space things. I can't believe we've gone this far without really talking about crazy space theories, because crazy space theories are everywhere in One Piece.
Yeah, and no one talks about them because they're so in the background. Because who would think about that?
Stories.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
There are aliens.
The idea that if I was Gold Roger and I had a year to live, and then I land on this island, it's the greatest adventure is out there. That's kind of funny. That's kind of that's kind of ironic. The other thing that I'm kind of thinking about right now is what if they get there and what they find is a big straw hat sitting on the ground. And what has happened in the intervening years is that whoever M is has already visited Laugh Tale, collected the One Piece, and when the Straw Hats get there, they will find it missing and now have to and Luffy will not mind, because he is not in this for the treasure. He is in it for the adventure. All along, he has said it's not about the treasure; it's about having fun. I don't want to know this. I don't want to know how it ends. I want to do the thing. He will be fine having done the thing, but there. If the government knows that there is a place on this planet that has a world earth-shaking secret, maybe they found it. Maybe they already have it, and then the end game of One Piece is all of us pirates going against the world government to get it out, to set it free for the world.
Ooh.
I really like that.
I wonder if Roger took anything from Laugh Tale. He was after the treasure, or that's what Rayleigh seemed to be after, was treasure. So I wonder if they took some of that fancy treasure away.
Ooh, coins.
Yeah, but I don't know.
It's a really, really good question. We know, and we've talked about this with Greg on a few occasions. And I think Oda said stuff along these lines. But basically, the end of One Piece is supposed to make Marineford look like nothing. I think Oda said something along those lines. So, that kind of feeds in super well, at least partially with what you were saying, David, in that it's totally possible that the series ends with Luffy versus the world government, and Luffy and his grand fleet and his whoever else is on his side. I think we all kind of know that's gotta be the big end battle. But what the hell does that have to do with Laugh Tale and the One Piece? And also Whitebeard on his deathbed, saying the One Piece does exist, said something along the lines of, there's that great war that's coming. Been waiting 1,000 years for it. And Doflamingo mentions before we see the hat, power is fleeting. Might as well tell the big secret to everyone, and then we see the Straw Hat. So that as the treasure, they called it the treasure of Marijois or Marijoa. So it all kind of fits, at least somewhat. I don't know if the One Piece itself is a giant straw hat. I mean, that would be.
I think it's just a switcheroo that's what he left instead of the One Piece or something. Like he
made a giant straw hat and left Roger or her.
Or no, that Emu.
Joy Boy?
He did find if Emu did somehow find Laftel and stole the One Piece, maybe he would leave something behind, being like, "Ha ha, I owe you one."
Oh yeah, I'm sure they'd laugh if they were screwed over like that. I
like the idea of, you want my hat? You can have it. I left it.
I gave it to Shanks years ago.
But one thing I kind of wonder is just like, how did Roger convince people he found it? Because then the press is talking about it. Did he get like a baby Big News Morgan and be like, okay, I found the One Piece. I can't tell you what it is. Or no, I just like that he did a full circumnavigation of the globe. He conquered the seas. He's king of the sea, SeaKing. But then like I wonder and why would the government even let them talk about it and call him the king of the pirates if they want to keep all that secret?
Well, we do know that in the wake of Roger finding the One Piece, there is an immediate crackdown on. Like
we were talking about this a little.
The world government doesn't care about O'Hara for 1,000 years, and then Roger finds the One Piece, and now the Jaguar D. Saul and his Marines are dispatched to go find researchers who are researching poneglyphs.
Yeah. And they were researching it for 6 years, meaning they were researching it from for 4 years before Roger died, and they didn't really do anything. Or they didn't try and do anything.
After they burn it to the ground. So I wonder if maybe the Roger pirates told the O'Hara anything, or gave them a hint, or like helped them translate it, even just like as a little bit of a hint. But I don't know.
No, I think the whole thing is, and Rayleigh says it again, we were not as skilled as the people of O'Hara. They figured, like, basically that Clover is supposed to be like one of the most renowned and intelligent people in the world. So I believe that he figured it out.
Yeah. It's a bunch of jocks got to the end instead, and now
exactly.
Luffy is a bunch of jocks, and then Robin.
Yeah, and this was one thing that I was taking away is that before, like when I was reading and watching One Piece before, and you have Roger saying, "You want my treasure? You can have it." Left it out there in one place. Now you got to find it. Like everyone says in the early chapters, Roger was just flashy. He just liked making a big scene. This was like his final game with the world. But now I can't help but read it as Roger knows there is unfinished business, that whatever he found, he wasn't able to use it to its full potential. And that's not just him saying, because like clearly, if you wanted to, you could find out that there was a One Piece and follow the Grand Line. Roger did that. But there's an urgency there. There's an idea that this has to be done. I've got to make sure that everyone's pirates after me, because we can't wait on this. And so that's why he kicks off the Grand Era of piracy.
It's kind of funny that he tells Poseidon, like, "Oh, I'm not going to come back in a year and kidnap your daughter." Instead, he kicks off a movement of people who are going to come and kidnap his daughter because they're kidnapping mermaids. So, thanks, Roger.
He's not wrong. Yeah, it's that same kind of thing as Odin, is that Roger is also singularly after his goal. That seems to really be a common personality in the One Piece world. And you know what? I'm going to say for Oda too, because this is a man who doesn't sleep for his damn manga.
Blackbeard soda confirmed.
Wow, that got dark. Pun intended. Okay, we have actual questions. Let's see how many of these we could get to. If I could get them back up here again. All right, first one comes from here we go. Bob Priestley, who says, "I think the reason that Roger left is that whatever message Joy Boy left would either take too long for him to do, considering his terminal illness." So, David, that's kind of along your lines. "Or was to be done in the future." There you go. "Therefore, his voyage was pointless." I'm sorry, my dog is trying to get in on this if you hear anything. "Although he didn't see it that way." Thoughts?
I got a real hot theory about what Joy Boy was going to do.
Go for it,
all
David.
right, so Sanji from the North Blue. What is the North Blue known for? The North Blue is known for creating stories that have a grain of truth within them, but everybody misinterprets them. So you got your Nolan the Liar, you got your superhero comic books. I say that the myth of the All Blue is actually Joy Boy's promise to the merfolk, and that when the One Piece is found, what will happen is that Mary Joie will be destroyed, the red line will be broken, and there will be a second point on the planet where all four seas can mix, and that will create the All Blue. The All Blue does not exist. The All Blue is a promise.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah,
I love that.
I think it's a kind of popular theory. I think didn't Greg say that Oda knows about it or something, so that it might not happen or something? I don't know.
You listen to my podcast more than I do, I think, Kendra.
I think you did a post about it. But I kind of like the idea of maybe the All Blue being in outer space or something. Could be cool, and maybe it's leftovers from when they remade the world.
Look,
but I
we
guess
gotta go to space.
Yeah,
that's all we're saying.
But why Roger's laughing? I wonder if it's like a mix of it actually being funny, or if him just realizing how much bigger it is than him. Because maybe he was mostly in it for the treasure. And then he kind of realizes, like, oh, there was, like, all this tragedy, and just, like, because he says, like, it's funny stories, and I'm like, I wonder if there's misunderstandings between the ancient government, the ancient kingdom and the government, and, like, shoujo misunderstandings, miscommunication, or something. Like, I hope there is a bit of, or, like, if it's ironic, and just, there's that, the singer who goes, isn't it ironic? Like, she's just trapped in there singing, instead of Louis C.K., but,
well, we know that Joy Boy, Noah, and the SeaKings are all connected to the same plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the SeaKings knew what Noah was for. So there has to be something there with... My question is, why do fishermen need a boat?
Yeah. Oh, the pressure. Or can they just swim?
Is this a riddle?
Will the pressure kill them? And also, like, she's
where
the
will
one
they
who
put all their stuff?
She's the one who can control SeaKing. She has the boat. She can just put people in it and go up. She doesn't need Joy Boy for it.
I mean, we kind of mentioned I way back. I don't think we mentioned on this episode yet, but that the SeaKings are supposed to be the mechanisms that drive Noah. Like they pull the chain at the end, and also like remember Mumu who came back, Momu, did I say Mumu? At the very beginning of Fishman Island, and we're like, why is he here? Or Surume, like I think there's supposed to be something akin to that for Noah. That's a very good question. Why the hell do fish folk need that? Maybe
there's something in the future that is going to, for a while, change what the water is, which sounds crazy, but. Like,
they were also looking to go to the surface, David. So maybe it has something to do with that.
That could be. But like, like the idea that like, okay, all the fish out of the water, because maybe it's like the reason why devil fruit users can't get wet, that the water rejects them. Maybe there's like a curse on the water, and that's when that is lifted, you better be out. You better be on top, or else something bad's gonna happen.
Or like Noah is a spaceship, so like they're going to the surface, but not to our surface, but higher.
It's
even though it's made of wood. Exactly. So maybe it's not finished or something.
But there is air in space in One Piece.
True. The moon.
Do we know that? I mean, well, okay. First off,
does Enor have to breathe?
That's a good question. Enor is a god. I don't know if he has to believe.
Well, he has to start his heart to be alive.
That's true.
Maybe he's like able to like keep it going with the electrical powers. Maybe there's air in on the moon in One Piece or in space. I don't know. The space thing is like a good what do you call it? Like Deus Ex Machina, where you could basically say anything fits in that box, and something will fit in that box. We just don't know what the hell it is.
The Celestial Dragons outfits look like astronaut suits, which I think has been mentioned like 1,000 times, but it's just
they do that. Yeah,
something in space.
Well, no, they don't want to breathe the same air as commoners.
Yeah, but their outfits are white. I don't know. Let's see what.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they do look like astronauts' suits, but like with more medals on it.
Yeah.
Because they're special and they need medals. Okay, next question. This one comes from Bob. Did I say Bob Priestley's already? No, I haven't said it yet. I think the reason Roger laughed is oh no, I did that one already.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, sorry, says the biggest story that no one is talking about is when will Eneru come back? This is perfect segue here. I think he will come back to activate the One Piece.
I've never stopped talking about it.
Ed never stopped talking about it. He said,
sorry, you were saying. Yeah.
I think he will come back to activate the One Piece, which was created on the moon. I know I'm wrong. I just want Eneru to come back. There's more impossible things in the One Piece world. Like Eneru, if he does not take part in this final act or something, does not come back in some fashion, I will be very disappointed. Although he did achieve his goal pretty quick, and he lost and he got to achieve it.
Maybe he'll come back like after one. Maybe he has to power. Pluton's powered by him, trapped inside. He's gonna get captured by the Navy. I don't know.
I don't know. We're almost out of time because Lucy needs to eat. That's my dog. Next one. Donuet says the reason Gold Roger smiled when he died was because he was still laughing about Laugh Tale. It was just so funny, guys. People have mentioned that that's a Will of D thing, and I think that's I don't think it's been confirmed, but everyone who had the D died with a smile. Who did die?
I think so. Smiling at inopportune moments is also a smile fruit thing. So I wonder if there's something like D users, D people have like something with their the bloodline elements or whatever. If something's mixed up, I don't know.
Do you think that Blackbeard is truly has the Will of D, or is he pretending because when he has faced death, he has been afraid?
Yeah, that's my personal thing about Blackbeard is that I don't think he really is a D. I think that's because he kind of represents the stealing part of piracy, and that he's stolen this will and isn't valuing it in the right way. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
What annoys me, kind of going back to how do you decide if your baby's a D? That's what just annoys me. Is that maybe his middle name's just Donald.
No, this kind of they kind of tie into each other because there must be something innate in being a D that you don't fear death in the same way. Because the fact that they all died, like Ace died smiling after crying, but he died smiling. So there must be something that on the verge of death or on the verge of giving birth to someone, they're able to understand that there is this inherited will thing that is through the will of D.
It is really interesting that people with the will of D can be on either sides of a conflict, that there isn't a unity of purpose with people who have the will of D. The one thing that I've been trying to think about is what are the commonalities between D people. And one thing that is interesting is that there have been two Marines who have had the will of D, and both of them have critically ignored orders given to them.
And Garb fought with Roger, remember, we recently found out.
D&D. D&D?
Yeah, well, also a good episode title. But before we go, we have one more question. This question has 30 questions. This one comes from, this is Ken O'Connor, and we're going to do a lightning round. If we answer it, if we already answered it, I'm just going to say answered. Yeah. So ready? Here we go. What is Uranus? Answered.
Kaido.
Answered. It's done. Kaido. Answered. Done. No, we don't know, obviously. What is the ability to hear the voice of all things, and why does Roger, Odin, Luffy, and Momonosuke have it? It is weird that, by the way, those four have it. Okay, so in a couple words or less, does anyone have an answer for the voice of all things? Telepathy. Anyone else?
I like the connection to the entire world type idea. The
Force, like we were saying, a kind of version of the Force. Yeah.
It's just kind of crazy and making things up.
Yeah.
I'm always surprised that everyone around them aren't just what the hell are you freaking talking about? Okay, next, giant frozen straw hat answered. It's the One Piece. Emu answered. No, well, we don't know who Emu is. He's the One Piece.
Emu's a giant chicken.
Oh,
it does explain the crown thing. Yeah. Tequila Wolf Bridge. I don't know what the question is.
Tequila Wolf, Tequila Mockingbird.
Tequila Wolf Bridge.
Tequila.
Ancient plot by the world government to subdivide the oceans as a third line around the world, not latitudinally but longitudinally.
Trying to make a Mario Kart track.
Oh, all good answers. Who or what is Joy Boy?
Toki's father.
Toki.
Sure.
I really
It's Toki.
Yes, or something. Like I want Oda to go nuts.
It would be really cool if Toki is related to Joy Boy, and that's freaking possible, and that's really cool. I didn't even think about that. So there we go. Lightning round helps. What are the mysterious things at the end of Thriller Bark?
It's Emu.
Baby Zunisha.
So I like baby Zunisha, or it's a big Zunisha. It's just the 4 legs. Someone mentioned that. I think Greg mentioned that. I like that theory.
Yeah. I do think that those will be revealed. I think on the last episode, folks were saying, that's just like a punchline at the end of Thriller Bark, but I don't think that Oda doesn't like leaving empty spaces, so I think that'll be filled in.
I was thinking that Capone was going to Thriller Bark, but he wasn't. I think he's somewhere else now. But I was like, well, maybe he'll see those, but no.
Capone's in Dressrosa.
Yeah, he's fighting Kiss Bandits.
Yeah.
Oh God, this whole okay. Next. How did Zoro lose an eye? Did he actually lose it? We discussed that, but we didn't really give an answer.
He ran with scissors.
He's napping. Half napping.
One of those baboon things got it.
Yeah. It was the worst baboon of them all. He made fun of me. Okay, next.
Wait. Yeah. I just realized there's a what is it? The Romance of Three Kingdoms. There's like one of these badass generals. One of the things that he does is he gets shot in the eye with an arrow and then he plucks it out of his head and eats it. Maybe there's something with that.
Wow.
That fits Zoro. I'm not going to say it doesn't fit Zoro.
This arrow is making me thirsty.
That's a good episode of Seinfeld. When Kramer does that. Okay, next one. Did Frankie incorporate parts of the Pluton blueprints into the Sunny? Hey, we talked about that. What's Dragon's power? I think we said the wind or weather. We haven't said it here on this episode, but we've definitely mentioned that before.
So then, maybe he's also a dragon, because I think dragons have weather powers in
it's
Japanese
too obvious.
mythology.
His name can't be the thing he is, because then Luffy would be a monkey.
Okay, I think Luffy's name being monkey is a Dragon Ball reference or something, right? But
maybe
it's bad that it's monkey. Why? Why is it
That's
monkey?
a great question, because it definitely, I feel like it makes it a little harder to get into the series if you know nothing about it and you're like, oh, the main character's name is Monkey. Okay.
Wait, hang on. Robin is collecting ancient texts.
I know.
There's something here.
I'm losing this connection. Next.
Wait,
No,
are they moving east?
They're moving west, but journey to the. Yeah, they're journey to the east. It's reverse Dragon Ball.
Okay. Next one.
Or are they going west? I don't remember. The map's all topsy-turvy.
Bonnie and Kuma, Queen and King, Mother and Son, Apprentice and Mentor. I think this was answered. It was her dad, right? In I think they said that in the Reverie thing. I mean, I could look if you want to give me a second.
She was pretending to be the dowager, but we don't know if she actually.
No, she was. No. They said. No, she says. Where is it? What the hell chapter was it?
My hot theory is that Jewelry Bonnie is Charlotte Linland's sister by her awful parents that ran away.
She says, I'm dying of envy, Father. Actually, I'm just dying. But we don't know who she is referring to.
Oh, but I remember when we saw that weird lady with Orochi, I thought she was Bonnie for 2 seconds before it turned out that she turned to someone else and then she has Bon Clay's fruit. So, I don't know. Bonnie also is considered a threat by the world government. So, she's not Toki though, or maybe she's Toki and she just dyed her hair and her
But how does she get away from Sakazuki too? What is her story is? It's interesting in the way that it's
because she's royalty or something.
Maybe she used to be a revolutionary and she's actually Luffy's mom.
I think that legit is a theory.
I think you know what? I think she is the age that she most often looks to be. Especially if Kuma is her father. It's in all likelihood that's her normal age, but I don't know. The reason I think she's interesting is because she's on a completely different type of journey than all the other supernovas. Maybe Capone, I don't know. He's doing his own thing.
All I just know about One Piece is every female character is Luffy's mom, and on Wano, every female character is Hiyori.
Dadan is Luffy's mom. I mean, not really, but I mean, she is in the One Piece sense of it, and she's amazing, and I love Dadan. Okay, next.
Yes.
Let's do these quick. Who is the traitor on Zoe? One word or one name.
Oh,
no traitor.
No traitor. Anyone else? Kentra, what did you say?
I'd say Zunisha. So maybe they have something from they made a Beaver card of the elephant.
Oh yeah, because they knew Rizo was there. How did they know Rizo?
So someone had to give it to them. I don't know. I don't think there is a traitor. I think it's something else going on, but we just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. They follow the elephant poop. That makes little islands like the goldfish does.
It was Operation Dumbo Droppings. What's the connection between Hitetsu collecting Kokeshi dolls and the room full of Kokeshi dolls in Orochi's castle?
That's Hitetsu's room.
Yeah, he used to be a resident at the castle when he was a big shot dude.
They said that?
Swords.
I forgot.
No, but
probably that makes sense.
It's possible.
Good theory. Yeah. Did Frankie turn all of the Wano ships into airships to blend in with the skyboats during the Fire Festival? That would explain where they all are right now, right?
No.
No?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe. But I don't like it.
Sounds cool.
Denjiro and Kyoshiro just, I don't know. Anything? No. I don't know.
I don't know. That's the guy. He could just confuses me. I'm just like,
yeah, both of those characters. It's very weird. Who is the light Emu wants extinguished? One word.
That would be the coming dawn of the will of D.
Okay, that's not really a word, but Kendra.
Oh, I don't know. I was trying to think. It made me think like maybe Vivi, but also like I think at the Reverie they said there was an attempted murder, a death, and I think I think this might be a later question.
Okay, who died at Reverie?
I think it might have been Cobra or Doctorine because she's old as hell.
Cobra. No, Doctorine will never die. And I would be really disappointed if she did. I love Kureha. And also, come on, Nozawa does her voice. There's no. Next one.
Bon Clay pretending to be Vivi.
Ooh. No!
No, that's bad.
Exactly. That's what I realized. I was like, wait a second.
Wait, it sounds good, but it's not. Did Moria take the deal and join Blackbeard? Yes or no?
No.
But he died and he got his fruit anyway.
Moria's lame as shit. He would definitely take that deal. He's like, oh, what else am I going to do? Can I just sit here and eat shit? Because I don't want to do anything else. All right. What did Blackbeard do to Whitebeard under that sheet?
Lewd.
Ew. I just assumed he had a fruit and then ate the fruit, but I mean, who the hell knows? All right. Why can Blackbeard hold multiple fruits? Is it his unique body or just a perk of the dark fruit? And why doesn't he sleep?
I think, yeah.
We talked.
I think
about
it's his body.
Yeah.
Blackbeard is many people in one large trench coat.
Or maybe he knows something about like I keep wanting to say quirk factor, but the bloodline factor. Like he was able to do something to his body or something, or he just understands devil fruits better than other people. That he could like.
Well, he did have the book. Which they better publish someday. Like when the series is over, I want an encyclopedia. Okay, next. Please don't tell me he bit a chunk out of Whitebeard like a fruit. Okay, how does Shanks get around so fast and not in the way you're thinking?
I don't know. Is that really a story point?
Yeah. Game of Thrones season 8.
What happened between Shanks and Kaido during the Marineford arc? I think they said. They just didn't want Kaido to get involved, right? I think that's what it was.
But Shanks held him off. And
right.
People are I guess they're asking how.
We don't know Shanks' powers yet, so if he has any, specific.
That's what I say. Drinking contest.
All right. What did Shanks discuss with the elders? We're almost done. 4 more.
Luffy?
He
took a really good poop, and he's like, "Look at my shit, shit bags." I don't know.
I like it. Is Shanks evil? I should ask.
Oh
no,
maybe.
No.
He might end up being ideologically opposed to Luffy, but I don't think he's going to be evil.
I agree with Shannon.
But I hope there is like a bit of a twist to him where he's not like all sunshiny good, that there's like a bit of a edge.
Almost done. Is Kaido a dragon who ate a human fruit, or is he an Oni that ate the dragon fruit, or something else? Is he Uranus?
I think there is a race of horned people that he's a part of, and he ate a dragon fruit. Possibly called Oni. And there's those numbers guys too.
Yeah, that's a good question about them. Why can't Kaido die?
He's Uranus.
Why does he?
Honestly, he's Frankenstein. He like Vegapunk built him, so now like he has to haunt. He has to kill Vegapunk first and go fight him in the Arctic or something.
Why does he? Why does he want to die?
Because Vegapunk won't build him a lady version.
You know, if Kaido really wanted to die, he could just eat another devil fruit and explode.
Ooh. Or go in the water.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, why doesn't he just jump in the water?
That's what I think. Maybe it's not a devil fruit. That maybe it's just like there were already dragons and they could just transform into people in like the Void Century, that there's like a lost species or something. Like that's what makes me think it's not a devil fruit. Or he wants to die in battle, or like dramatically. He's just a drama queen. He wants to die dramatically.
He is.
So the Orzes are dragons too?
Ooh, maybe, yeah.
Very last question. Was Momo's fruit a real fruit or artificial? I assume it's artificial from everything we saw, but it seems to be a little different from the sad ones or the smile ones.
Yeah, it's kind of buggy, no relation.
Yeah, it seems like a step up from the sad ones or the smile ones, whatever you want to call it. Because those just turn like you grow a piece of that animal off of you. This one you still do the thing you're supposed to do, but just you don't control it well. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. So let's talk about volume 95 and then we'll round off.
All right.
The following segment contains images, so if you would like to follow along with images, all you have to do is go to youtube.com/OnePiecePodcast or listen along on a podcatcher that supports M4A. So when you hear this noise, that means a new image has come up that supplements the material we are talking about in this Volume 95 recap. So with that out of the way, please enjoy Steven's look through the latest volume, volume 95 of One Piece. Enjoy.
This is the manga recap for volume 95, and I'm here with Steven. It's just me and Steven. I'm Ed.
Hey, I'm Steven.
All right, cool. So, Steven, you're going to take us through the SBS and I think Oda's message, and also anything else that might have come up in the volume. Yeah, cool. So, why don't we just get right into it?
Sure. Yeah, we talked a little bit. You know, we always talk about the covers when they get published online, and it seems like they've been, expanding the I guess the tease, if you will, because they like to put out those like process pictures and things and like the line art before you get to see the finished product. So it's kind of fun, but it feels like we've been talking about this one for a while. But this, of course, is the image of the three. It's like almost like the totem pole here of Brook in the background, Luffy in the middle, and Chopper in the foreground, all dressed up in their ornate samurai armor and katanas and such. And then in the background you have the images of the four emperors, specifically taken from their bounty posters. Yeah, I mean it's a. I like how simple it is, and despite being simple because of the armor, it's very like there's a lot of detail to enjoy regardless.
There's also the rainbow aspect of it, which I enjoy.
Yeah,
it's,
that was
pink and
surprising.
Green. Pink and green are not colors you think would work together, but they do, I think.
Yeah, like because I remember on the process image where or not even an image, it was like a video, I think, where they showed him. It was like he had taken a recording of him, this is obviously all digitally done, at least when he was planning it out, where he was testing out different colors and trying different combinations of the armor and stuff, and just sort of like scribbling, like just sort of different color patterns on the, the poster images in the background. And then some of them were like super colorful, like almost like rainbow looking. And I just assumed like, oh, that's just kind of like his blank space, like his little canvas where he's mixing the colors and, whatnot. But it turns out, no, that's kind of what he was thinking of all along, was having this kind of gradient rainbow color in the background, which is it's interesting. It's very striking.
I'm only just now noticing how all of the 4 emperors have different noses, like very distinct noses. Like Linlin's got this big bulbous thing. Shanks has like the slim. I guess Luffy has the same kind of nose. Blackbeard's got his half Usopp nose, and Kaido's just sort of just kind of a small nose. It's interesting because like that's an easy thing I think to draw similarly for many characters, but they're very different.
He does a good job of differentiating these characters, and then when you take the cover off, then instead.
Yeah, I found this image.
It's pretty good. So find the Panda Man. Well, it's pretty easy this time because he has replaced Shank's face on the background posters.
Oh my God.
So yeah. Kind of, not quite the same expression entirely, but still looking very menacing and very badass, which is hilarious for, a guy with no eyes, basically.
Well, they're very menacing. They're just black voids. They look back at you.
Yeah, so that is the cover for Volume 95. This is titled Oden's Adventure. And I'll get to Oda's comment in a second, but this one covers from chapter 954 through 964, which means that we begin with kind of like just the wrap up before the end of Act 3, where Hiyori is giving Zoro, is trying to basically trade swords with Zoro, and then we end in the middle of the of Oden's flashback after he meets Toki.
Okay.
So, Oda's message in this one is, you know how when you start cleaning, you just have a little corner of the room and you're like, I'm just going to clean that little part, and then it just goes and goes and goes, and you just never stop. You know how that goes? Yeah. I've always wanted to say that, but not actually do it. So anyways, I'll put a stop to that, but there's no stopping this adventure. Volume 95 begins. So I guess he's got spring cleaning on the mind or something.
Or what is that? I'd like to say that, but not do it. I'd like to. Is that what he said? Yeah. I'd like to have. Yeah. I'd like to say that. I'd like to have the feeling. I don't want to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. I always wanted to say that. Let's get into the SBS here. It felt like this one was a little lighter on the SBS than usual, certainly compared to last volume, because I think we had extra last volume. I don't know. That may have just been my impression. Maybe I was just enjoying it too much.
I don't know. I was able to find some images people had posted on the web of the SBS pages, and it looks like there's 6 of them.
Probably something like that.
Yeah.
I just got this in this week because I delayed my shipment, even though it came out late December. I delayed my shipment because there was a Samurai 8 volume that I also needed to work on that came out first week of January. So I just got this, and actually I'm glad that I had enough time to go over and translate the first column, because there's some very kind of miscellaneous information in here. It's nice to have sitting in front of me so that I can read it. But anyways, getting into the SBS itself, our first header is this is kind of funny because this is actually taken from the Ace novel that I translated, the first of the two, because it is a picture of Ace and his first crewmate on the Spade Pirates, which is a guy named Masked Deuce, and where they meet on a deserted island, and where there's a scene where Ace eats the fruit that turns out to be his flame fruit, and so it looks like here he is accidentally lighting maybe like a trap for some animals, like to catch for food, and he is lighting the rope on fire accidentally while Deuce is yelling at him. So that one's pretty neat, and hey, thankfully later this year you'll be able to read that. You won't be lost. So the first reader says, "Oh, hey, there's a UFO," and then like in parentheses, while Odachi is distracted, "Okay, let's start the SBS." And Oda's response is, "What? Wait, UFO? Where? I want to see it. Oh my God, I want to see a UFO." It's like, "I'm gonna go. Let me get on my bike. I'm gonna go chase after it. Where did it go? Which way?" And then he's like, the font is getting smaller as it goes on. And he's like, "Oh, I see something shining. It's shining and it's spinning. Is it? Wait, no, it's just an idol fan doing concert tricks with their glow sticks."
That's got to be such a pain for I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe for like it's all digital, but like the progressively smaller type.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it's not too bad. And he's like, wait a second, the SBS started without me. So yeah, that's pretty funny. The next question is from it is about the teacher from the classroom scene where she was filling the kids' heads with propaganda. The snake neck teacher he says, this reader says, is the teacher with the extending neck, does she have devil fruit powers, or is this like a special race of some kind? And
well, if you remember from the slave house.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting part of why they asked the question. Right. But Oda says, yes, that would be, he calls her Sarahebi Sensei, and that's a type of yokai that's basically just a snake with a woman's head. He says, yeah, the kids really love her, but of course she is a henchman of Orochi and Kaido, and she's a bad teacher. She's filling the kids' heads with anti-Kozuki lies and revisionist history, I guess. So because she has the snake smile fruit, it's her neck is a snake, basically. So that is the answer to that one.
That doesn't really answer the question, though, does it? Is it a devil fruit?
Yeah, that's a smile fruit.
Okay. Never mind. I got distracted looking at the pictures.
Yeah. And then the bottom one here is the sort of category answer. And this is why I was glad that I had this already translated ahead of time. So the reader says, Oda-sensei, hello. I would like to know the image, flower, and animal for each of the worst generation. And so that obviously is, whatever flower and animal that Oda would like mentally associate with them. I always bring this up because I know that everyone gets confused about it, but there was like the example of when he did the image countries for the Straw Hats, and so it was like, what real world countries does he associate with their personality? And everyone assumes that meant that's like their literal ethnicity or something, and it's like, no, that's not how it works. It's
right. And then everyone got confused when they had that color spread with everyone in different country garbs.
Right. Yeah. So it's just, he's just playing some kind of mental association, word association kind of. And so Oda says, oh, okay, sure. But, I don't know much about flowers. So this isn't, don't look up there like, what is this flower? What is its flower word?
Oh, yeah, that's right. There is, the art of flower arranging is a thing.
Yeah, well, and like this flower means trust, and this flower means blah. He's just going off of what the image is, and of course there's like 12 of them here, so I don't know what every different flower is. So now I have a handy list here. So let's go through them. First up is Luffy, who is a sunflower and a monkey. That's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Kid. His flower is a tulip, and his animal is a fighting bull, a Colosseum bull. I guess that, if you consider that Colosseum bulls are meant to be beaten by the matadors, it kind of makes sense with what Kid has been through lately.
Yeah, it hasn't been a good post-time skip for Kid.
No. Laws is a flower. I kid you not. Is called the Queen of the Night. Which,
Queen of something.
Yeah, and his image animal is a snow leopard, which Oda has definitely said before.
I think there was a Toshio Asakuma figure of Law as snow leopard.
Yeah, I believe that's right. And then what was it? The hat was supposed to be like a seal, or someone thought it was a Arctic seal or something like that. Blackbeard, his flower is in English. It's called the red spider lily, which is kind of an interesting image. But the actual the Japanese word is higambana, and that is it's a flower that grows.
Is it parody on beard? What is this?
No, the higambana is a type of flower that grows. It tends to grow in the wet season, so after the monsoon season. So it's in the late summer, early August, and so it is very closely associated with like Obon and other festivals like that. So higambana literally means like the flower on the far bank, and so it's used and as in other words like the far bank of the river that takes you to the afterlife. So it's like used for memorials for the dead. It's something that you would never give someone as a present because of the connotations of being related to death. So it's kind of an ominous flower in this context. So that's a pretty good choice, I think. Yeah. And his image animal is a hippo.
Oh boy,
he's got the figure for it.
Yeah, and the teeth.
Yeah. Zoro's is his flower is a wisteria or lilac. It's the Fuji that is also the same thing from Fujitora, and his image animal is the shark.
Interesting.
Next up is Killer. His flower is the snowdrop, and his animal is a weasel. Hawkins is a black lily, and his animal is a horse. Bonnie is a freesia flower, and her animal is a deer. Bedges, okay, I like this one. Bedges' flower is a rose, and his animal is the koala.
Okay.
I guess maybe it's because he's actually kind of small and kind of cuddly in his own weird way
compared to all the rest of these monsters.
Yeah. A rouge is a daisy and an elephant.
Oh, okay. Well, the elephant makes sense. The daisy is sort of, I don't know, maybe it doesn't have the same connotations in Japan as it does in this.
Yeah, a bit odd.
Yeah. I associate it with 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah. Apu is the poppy flower, and an orangutan, which I guess
the
long arms. Yeah. And lastly, Drake's flower is the bellflower. Also happens to be the name Rindo of one of my favorite, I think my favorite random Amazon Lily character, who was the smoking one who had her hair in a bun and always had her shirt open. I always liked that character. And his spirit animal, you'll never guess what his image animal is, the Allosaurus.
Ah, well.
So there you go. There's a whole clearinghouse of information on the worst generation. Mm-hmm. So we'll move on to the next segment. And this one, our SBS appears to be, I guess, I'm trying to remember. This is, I think, Fujin and Raijin.
The two ninjas from the ninja squad of Wano.
Yeah, if I'm remembering that correctly, I can't. But they're they're paired together, so I would assume it's definitely them.
And the SBS is Shuriken.
Yes, Shuriken. And the first question, I love this question. This is very clearly from a small child. He has drawn an adorable picture of Zoro with his swords, and the arms they look like long strips of paper just extending from his shoulders in the way that kids draw. And the letter is, hello, Oda Sensei. I have a question for you, Oda Sensei. When it's so Zoro has a sword, he bites the sword. Don't his teeth hurt? Zoro is my favorite character. And that is from Shunya N. And Oda's like, okay, so you like Zoro, huh? Oh, that's so sweet of you. You're worried about Zoro's teeth. Yeah, you know what? I bet they do hurt Zoro, but he does his best and he bites them and he bites the sword anyways. Why does he do that? Well, it's because a long time ago, he and his best friend made a promise that one of them was going to be the best in the world. And the sword that he has in his mouth is the memento of that friend after she died. And so in order for, the sorrow and the frustration that she couldn't live through it, to turn that into strength, that's why Zoro uses the three sword style. And so even if his teeth hurts, he still bites the sword until the day that he will be the best in the world. Thanks for your letter. Send me another one anytime you want. And so
it's very cute. It's very patient with the kid who certainly was not alive when that story was first told.
Yes, very. It's definitely Oda in parental mode. There, answering an earnest question from a young child, and then the next one comes with a handy little insert from the scene in the bathhouse where everyone is staring at Nami, and you can see the little bamboo tube sticking up out of the water. And this is from frequent question submitter Sanadachi, who always writes in all the pervy ones. And it says, in chapter 935 in the bathhouse, I noticed that someone is using the art of like the water escape to hide inside the bath. The truth is that was me. And Oda is like, damn it, it's you. Like I was doing the SBS right with Shunya up there. Like it was working, and now you've ruined everything. So yeah, there he goes.
He comes and ruins the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And then lastly, the next comment is, I've noticed that several times after a particularly moving scene or a very important story, rather than including at the end of the chapter, when you turn the page, rather than including some kind of disgusting extra like an SBS segment, you will sometimes leave it blank, so there's nothing, so that you can savor the moment that just happened instead. Is that on purpose? Is that something you try to do, or is that just a coincidence? And Oda says, yes, that's right, I do that. Sometimes I take it out, so it's just a placeholder, and sometimes I'll put in the Usopp's Gallery page, the early pages. I do focus on that because last thing you want to see after a really nice story is some stupid comment from Sanada. So there you go. He does sometimes pay attention to where he includes the SBS.
Roasting Sanada is Sanadachi as well.
Yes. So we will move ahead to the next SBS segment, and I like this header. Another good one. This is Kawamatsu and Onimaru the fox, and they are observing the weapons that are up on the wall in the shape of an SBS.
I'm trying to figure out what one of those is: a scissors and a spear, and I'm not sure what the bottom part of the B is.
Yeah, that might be.
Boomerang?
I don't know. Yeah, is that a boomerang? I don't know. Something like that. And so this reader has an interesting question or a comment about Mihawk's sword, Yoru, or Night. He says, I want to see the personification of Mihawk's black blade, Yoru, or Night, and his little cross knife. Because the ones that you've been drawing so far are not cool at all. They suck.
Well, I mean, they have a distinct style.
Yeah. He's like, so this time I'm asking you, please draw them to be super cool. They need to fit how cool Mihawk is. You have to do it. Swear to me, you have to do it. And then he also Oda included the illustration that the reader sent in, and that says, by the way, I want to see it being, a cool, hot older lady, and then a cute little like lolly type girl.
Did you just draw Mako Kaji? Is that what that is?
Kind of, yeah. There's a very like Amand style to her, to this Yoru image, where she's got a big long hat and a very kind of seductive look to her, and then the little tot with her, like a little Shirley Temple-esque girl to represent the knife. And so Oda says, "Oh man, that's really good. Like we should just go with that." Like you really laid it out, and you explained it so well yourself that it's so easy to understand. I like that they're women too. And he's like, "Okay, I got it. That's fine. That's cool." And so then he draws them, and
it's not. It looks like all the rest of them.
Yeah, they're not particularly flattering. But it's a nice like action pose, and so it is the Black Blade, and he calls her Yoruko instead of Yoru, and she's going like, "Let's cut him up, partner." And then the little knife is called the little knife is called Omakeko, which would just be like, I don't know, like extra girl or something like that. Like
extra?
Yeah, like it's like she doesn't even have a name. It's just like her name is literally just like the other one or something.
Yeah, this is the smallest. It reminds me of that scene actually. And Mihawk's like, "Well, this is the smallest thing I got."
Yeah, and she's going like, I don't know. There's a couple different ways I could do this, but like she's sort of going like, "All right, you got it, boss." Like she's got this really ridiculous thing, and so Oda continues. I have successfully personified the weapons. He's like, I'm sorry, I admit it. I'm a little bit ashamed to say that I was a bit, I was, what's the best way to say this? I was not the most mature here. I kind of showed off a little the professional skills a little too much here. Didn't mean to show you up like that. These will be the official models. He's oh boy. Yeah, just lots of tongue in cheek in this volume's SBS. So yeah, that's the latest of the weapon personifications. Let's see how many more times he does these.
There's a lot of swords in One Piece, I'll be honest.
Yeah, he's got a lot of options. The next SBS is from our friend 420 Land from Hong Kong. And I believe he also has a question later on too. And his header is Otoko and napping Kyoshiro. And she appears to be practicing her calligraphy and then realizing to her shock that she has drawn the S on Kyoshiro's regent, his big bouffant, his
pompadour.
His pompadour as he is sleeping, which is pretty cute.
He's gonna be sore when he wakes up. He's gonna be cross.
And so this first question here is, it says, Oda Sensei, I have been officially recognized by the Guinness World Book as the record holder for the most pieces of One Piece merchandise at 5,656. That would be Gomu Gomu. Yes, Yahoo! He's like, the 18 years that I spent buying merchandise nonstop were not a mistake after all. And that comes from pen name Sanadachi. And Oda is like, what? Guinness Book? Oh my God, congrats. Wait, Sanada? And he's like, oh man, why do I feel like I'm not supposed to be happy for you? Wait, is this a lie? Is it true? And then he has a little like box. He's like checking, searching online. And then, an ellipses. And he's like, you know what? It seems like this is true. And he's like, man. And now I find out, Sanada, you're a YouTuber? Everybody, you don't have to don't look at his YouTube. Don't look at this pervert's YouTubes. But Like, man, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that you loved One Piece so much, despite being a pervert. He's like, well, you know what? Regardless, being the best in the world, that is a major accomplishment. So, you know what? I'll be honest. Despite being a pervert, congratulations. And despite being a pervert, thank you. So
Oda's he's on a roll. He's not taking any serious questions.
No. Not certainly not from Sanada.
No.
So the next one actually is a somewhat, kind of a jokey question, but also kind of raises an interesting question that people have been having, which is that the races that are not present in Totoland. You got the giants, you've got whatever king is, and it is the last one me. And they have a little picture of King just to remind you what he is. And Oda's like, nope, not you. So he's still holding that one close to his chest.
Yeah.
But interesting to see that brought up again. And the last question on this segment is about the toad on top of Usopp's head. Can you tell me his name and how they came together? And what it says, his name in Japanese is Gama Pionnosuke, which would be essentially sort of like, I don't know, like toad Boingnosuke or something like that. It's the word toad and then the sound of jumping. So he was caught in a snake's glare. He was in danger. He was caught in a snake's sights, and that's actually a Japanese saying. Like when it's basically the equivalent of a deer frozen in the headlights.
Oh, okay.
He was caught in a snake's sights when Usopp happened by, and so he jumped on top of Usopp's head instead. Usopp then noticed the snake, got freaked out, and raced away, and so Pionnosuke realized that he was probably safe up there on top of Usopp's head, where he has remained to this day.
And Usopp's head is covered in frog shit.
Yeah, I don't know how often they go. I've never owned a frog, so
Interesting.
Next SBS is a nice. This is a really this is almost a dangerously accurate recreation of Oda's style, and it is
Oda doesn't draw these. Wow.
Right.
That's pretty good.
This is a reader submission, and it is Minatomo the carpenter in the foreground, like pointing and yelling, I guess, at his lazy or his incompetent employees or something who are at work on the scaffolding of this building, and their bodies are forming the SBS. And so our first question is about the captain of the Eastern Army or the Eastern Forces of the Revolutionary Army, Bello Betty. She is so awesome and beautiful. I just love her. Is she based off of? Let me see. I believe it's Delacroix, Lady Liberty leading the people. Mm-hmm. Marianne specifically. That's her name. And Oda's like, yes. You're thinking of the painting where she's leading the people like a bus guide, like a bus tour guide. That's
just replace it with a red umbrella instead of a flag.
And a clipboard. Yes, that is the image that I had for Betty, and yes, she has been very popular indeed. So, yeah,
can imagine why. I think we pointed that out about the painting on when she first.
Oh yeah, for sure. It helps that like her speeches and stuff is very clearly based on that sort of revolutionary fervor as well.
Yeah, and her hat as well is also a revolutionary symbol. It's a
mm-hmm.
maybe I think it's called a Phrygian cap or something like that. I forget what it was called, but it has significance to the French Revolution. I think
just French Revolution. Yeah. Next question. This is probably the most interesting one, or at least the one that we've, I think, wondered about the most. So the question is, the transponder snails, the Dendemushi, they take on the appearance of and the clothes of their owners. How does that work exactly? Because sometimes there are times where they are, they look like the person who is on the other end. Sometimes they look like the person who is making the call. And, even though they're talking with someone else, it's very mysterious. There's lots of mysteries about the transponder snails. And Oda says, okay, so first of all, transponder snails have, I forget what the word is. They have camouflage abilities, like a chameleon. So they basically copy the appearance of, people they're close to, and the mannerisms of them. And so when they're talking with someone on the other end, they basically capture the expressions of the people as they are talking, but which one they happen to be, which end of the line they are mimicking, or whether or not they're just in their plain form, it all seems to depend on just the inclination of the individual snail. Since, they're not actual machines, they're not mass manufactured, they're living creatures. So there's no strict, properties by which they all must act. So it's kind of a fancy way of saying I just draw them whichever way I want to draw them. But just kind of letting it's not like there are, hard and fast rules about how those things work. So there you go. The last question here is specifically, it's a list. Someone is pointing out a whole list of Rakugo references that all of the people in chapter 929, all of the succession of people who bought the plans to the mansion, to Kaido's mansion, are all characters from Rakugo. And so this person just has a list of all of them, that Kumagoro is from, Oyama Mairi and Kowakare, and Kobe is from, Kogoto Kobe, and, all of these things. So he has a whole list of references, and he's like, man, I really felt like the love that you have for Rakugo when I recognized all of these things. And Oda's like, oh yeah, you got it. You got them all right. That's for sure. I'm just stuffing as many Rakugo references as I possibly can in there. If you recognize them, feel free to smirk a little bit if you like. But that's as deep as they go.
Yeah, I like it. It feels like that GIF of the guy reading Sensible Chuckle magazine. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. So that'll be an interesting one, because I obviously, to just reproduce this information directly would mean even less to the average English reader. So I don't know. I may end up, just for some inside baseball, I may end up, I don't know, paraphrasing this into just sort of explaining that what Rakugo is, and that there are a bunch of little hidden things, bits of flavor in the background of all these characters. Because obviously there's not a lot of Rakugo culture in the United States.
Although there's probably more than there was 2 years ago because of that anime, but that's about it. But even then, I didn't know any of these characters, and I watched both seasons of that thing. Yeah, and I remember Joey saying that he read the manga, and it was just you had to read it a couple times just to understand what was going on. So our next SBS has an adorable. Was this Sam? No. We have an adorable SBS of Carrot in her Wano garb with the little, her little head shawl onto, and the SBS are just little fluffy. They have little bunny ears, and the bee has a bunny tail. It's a very cute little, very springtime looking cover. And our first question is from someone who says, have you ever done one of those apps that makes your face look like really young, like a little baby face? So nobody really cares about your face, Odachi, but I would really love to see Mihawk and Crocodile and Doflamingo. What would their baby faces look like if they used one of those apps? And
Oda's like, what do you mean you don't? I'm like, come on, don't be shy. It's okay. You can admit it. And he's saying, yeah, I love all these latest apps and things like that. And so he draws Mihawk and Crocodile and Doflamingo in these just ridiculous, like little scamp forms.
They look like Strong Bad. They look like Stinko. They look like Stinko Man because their head is a little bean.
Yeah. It's very flattened, very wide, and not very tall. So they have those kind of baby, the puffy cheek, baby proportions. And Mihawk is going, I'm just killing time. And then Crocodile and Doflamingo are kind of doing their laughs, this
child is smoking in the middle here.
Yeah, it's he's got a huge scar across his face. It's bad. And Oda's comment is, I don't like these brats. So yeah. The next question is, Odachi, why didn't Kid and Killer just use the technique of butt breathing to survive their waterboarding? And that one was the question from 420 Land. And
wow.
Oda says, "Oh, good point. Yeah, because then you wouldn't have to worry about drowning." You know what? There's a lot of fans of the Kid Pirates, like a lot of them. So you should watch out with what you submit to this corner this question segment. So yes, in other words, don't degrade the image of the Kid Pirates, because his posse will come after you. And lastly, this is actually an interesting one because I was not aware of this particular piece of history. So it's kind of a very Japanese-centric thing. This person asks, I've been wondering something. So when you use like sort of tough guy slurring of certain verbs and words, where instead of saying shiranai or iranai, when they say shirane or irane, he uses, it's all in hiragana, but then like to show that vowel being slurred, he uses a small katakana a to make that sound. So why do you use the katakana a instead of like a hiragana? Is it just sort of part of your part of your style, part of your playfulness? Please tell us where that came from. And Oda says, "Oh, this was an easy one. You see, there's this manga called Akira. It's a classic. It's there's an animated film, and it's renowned worldwide, super famous. And in this manga, they used the smaller letters in this way. Like that's what he did with his text. And when I read it in about middle school or so, it was very influential on me. I thought it just had such a cool impact, and it looked slightly weird. It looked a little bit off, and it looked cool, he thought. And so that's why he has used that as well. And that was really interesting to me because I'm not sure. I mean, it doesn't necessarily say here that Akira was the first one, but it seems to imply that it definitely, certainly, I think it is very much a truism that if Akira did something, and then, or if Akira did something, then a whole bunch of other artists were going to do that afterwards because it was so incredibly influential at the time. So that was very.
Oda must have been reading that as it was coming out because it started in 85 and he was born in 75. So, yeah, he was probably reading that as it was coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, could be. I mean, it took a while for the amount of material that the story covers. It had a pretty long,
right? Because the movie came out in 88, I want to say, and it only covers the first 2 volumes. I'm not sure if there was more at the time, or if that. I'm not sure about that. I think the story kind of slows down after he had finished the movie, and he was sort of free to elaborate on the original concept that he had come up with. Yeah. And also just to say, if you can find that Akira box set out there with additional translations by Steven, buy it. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, the smallest translations possible, but yeah, it was super awesome
to it, and that's important.
Yes, contributor. That's a good way to put it. I know those are limited edition. Hopefully, if they keep selling out of them, hopefully every now and then they'll keep making more batches because they're super cool.
Yeah, they're gonna keep selling. I don't think they're in the business of not making money.
No. So last SBS segment, and oh boy, this header is a doozy. It is it is Soba Mask in the bath, and he's gotten a glimpse of Nami. He's already seen it all.
No.
And his nosebleed is forming the SBS, which is also conveniently covering her naughty bits. So,
oh dear.
Yes. Just to make sure that there's an extra, he had to balance it out. The SBS was too good up until this point.
Wasn't
dirty enough.
Yeah. So the first question here is, I was noticing that I feel like Doflamingo kind of reminds me of Spider-Man. Am I the only one? And Oda says, yes, that's an interesting comment. But, if you ask me, that's, Spider-Man's only gotten popular fairly recently in Japan.
Okay, well.
Or at least for him, in Japan. And so he says, actually, like the shape of his eyes, quote unquote, his sunglasses, was based on something that was popular when I was in kindergarten, and I drew tons and tons of art of a series called Kamen Rider Super 1. And I'm pretty sure that was the inspiration that I was drawing upon for Doflamingo. Man, I really loved those eyes. And so he includes a little picture of the TV show. And it's true. It's definitely got that kind of slightly almond shape, like elongated and pointed.
Interesting. I guess Oda's a little too young to have known the 70s Toku Spider.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know like how really popular. I'm sure that all of the popularity today is because of the Marvel movies and Tom Holland and stuff. So,
and I also wonder, I wonder if more people in America know that Japanese Toku Spider-Man as like a curiosity, as being like a part of Spider-Man lore, than people in Japan actually knowing it.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, like I think the curiosity that that the land of Spider-Man would have felt towards this weird kind of foreign exported version of it would have been more intense than probably their frame of reference for it.
Yeah.
The next one is a factual question about the flashback in chapter 943 when the people of the Okabore town ate the smile fruits. They're saying stuff like, "Oh my gosh, I've never had such a delicious apple." Does that mean that the smile fruits actually taste good, unlike the real devil fruits? And Oda says, well, they all say that the real ones taste bad. So it would seem that a smile fruit just has the taste of a normal fruit. But you could also say that it was because of that the tragedy of Ebisu Town happened the way it did, because they wouldn't have realized right away.
Yeah.
And known to stop. And our last question, going out with a bang, is I would like to. This is a tricky Japanese thing. It's called Yoi de wa naika, which it basically translates to like, oh, come on, you can't, let's do it. Let's do it. It's all right. It's all right. It's basically like a sort of placating thing. I would like to do that to Nami in her kimono outfit. And Oda included the scene where she gets the disguise where, like the straps are around her shoulders and she has to like tighten them up and stuff. And so this is basically like a sort of stereotypical like period piece thing where you have the lecherous lord, and in his throne room, he chases around like
Prima Nocta,
yeah. Well, he chases around like the sort of concubine type thing where they're going like, "Eek! Oh, you're gonna catch me, my lord!" And then and Oda's like, "Yeah, I know. It's the thing where they go, oh no!" And you grab the waist sash and then you pull it so that they spin. They go woo 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 until and then the kimono sort of falls loose. He's like, yeah, you see them do that a lot of times in period pieces. And actually, I wanted to try to find a way to draw that as well, because it's just such a distinct sort of stereotype. But I couldn't really work it into the story, and so I'm sorry. I apologize, everyone. I'm so sorry. This is a wake up call for me. I've got to improve my craft as a mangaka to make the dreams of everybody, become real, and become true, and so that they appear right on the page for you. Oh, wait. No. I mean, that's what Sanada said. That's not. I didn't say that. Sanada said that. By the way, this is that's it for the SBS. We're done. See you next volume. So
okay,
there you go. He kind of backloaded all of the pervy stuff.
Yeah.
There at the end, but
yeah. I don't know. I feel like if maybe don't read the SBS if you're not a fan of Oda's treatment of women.
True.
I don't know, man.
I mean, he's obviously lots of tongue in cheek there, but yeah. So yeah, he was clearly kind of feeling on a roll with this the SBS, and there's a lot of funny stuff in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to we're translating all of those for our eventual graphic novel release, whenever that happens to be. It's probably like at the end of the year, or whenever it is.
I think they're they're less than a year behind. I think now, months. Like 9-10 months. Yeah, so late fall, I would say.
That sounds right. Yeah. So yeah, that was all of the extras for volume 95, Oden's Adventure.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Let's move on to the next segment.
Sounds good.
This is the double anime recap for episodes 916 and 917. I'm your host Sam, and today with me we have Ed.
Hello.
And joining us today we also have Rick and Morty's own Brian Newton.
Hello.
Yes, so we've got a couple of pretty significant episodes. They're a good twofer, I think.
More importantly, new eye catch. Well, that's
sort of for a moment.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
we'll get to it.
Yeah. The first episode up on the docket is 916, A Living Hell, Luffy, Humiliated in the Great Mine. And the title card begins at 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So I noticed that the screen kept blinking out to black as we're zooming in on Luffy's unconscious body.
Yeah, that was deliberate.
Yeah, I know it was deliberate. It still seemed like a distracting choice.
I agree. I would prefer a cross dissolver overlay.
Yeah. Kaido is telling his henchmen to lock Luffy up, and when they announce the imprisonment to the country, not to print the word pirate in the news. I'm not going to let people know that an outsider is in. And the henchmen are trying to pick him up, but they're like, "Ew, he's so bloody." That they're having a hard time, and that's when
let's just drag him.
Yeah. That even unconscious, Luffy is triggering his Conqueror's Haki and knocking them out, telling them not to touch him. And
super slow mo.
Yeah, and Kaido's kind of miffed at this, and he kind of offhandedly mentions, "Oh, that Eustace kid had Conqueror's Haki too." So he turns into a dragon and flies away, and he's like, "Oh crap, I'm sobering up. Gotta get some more booze in my system." And we have a little scene with Law in the woods removing the sea prism stone nail and just kind of remarking that that's an unusual thing to exist. And likewise, Hawkins, who's still in town, he's talking about how he's looking for Law, and he plans to track him down and not let him get away. So we come back to Okobore town, where Otsuru she's treating an old man, and we've got Kinemon in the bandit rag thing. So he's stealthy.
He's sneaking.
He's sneaking around. He's watching her from afar.
Yeah, first 3 quarters of the episode is just It's just winding down, but they get the, I don't know, the end is better.
Yeah, it's winding down so that it can wind back up.
I particularly love the sequence because they have that kid who's clearly spying on a Kinemon.
Oh yeah,
he's just staring straight at him.
Yeah, but that's actually in the panel.
Yeah,
in the manga, I was like, oh, they kept that. That's because it was so stupid, and they had to elaborate a little more.
You know, Kinemon seeing his wife again for the first time in 20 years, and he's still struck by her beauty even after all these years. And we see what Okiku is up to, and she's approaching the crater on the mountain where the Straw Hats were obliterated by Kaido's blast. And she's relieved to find out that they're safe inside. They're safe inside of this big crater, where Chopper has done his big guard point, so that he can be like the floor of the crater, I guess, because he's just so like big and fluffy and.
I don't know. I feel like
in there.
More debris should have fallen on Chopper. That should have been more painful. But
well, we have a scene where Sanji, he grabs the girls and he flies up and returns them to solid ground and just kind of lets the guys up to their own devices, and they're all annoyed about that. And but everyone gets back up. It's not much of an issue. And
wasn't he like grabbing what's her name? Shinobu grabbing Shinobu by the top of the head, but he was like holding the other two with care.
Was he really?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. He was like grabbing her by the top of her head.
But she was still like blushing.
Oh yeah, she was very excited.
And so now that they're all up there and Shinobu is explaining, we get a little flashback where I think this is our first time learning that she has the ripe fruit, where she basically touches the ground and it makes the ground so old that it kind of deteriorates. And that's why the crater was there, and that's how they survived the blast. And then we have a scene where, if you were worried what was happening with Otama, if she was gonna get captured, Dogstorm is to the rescue. She's in the care of somebody trustworthy. And then that brings us to the eye catch. It's not the new eye catch yet. It's for next week's. And then we come back from the commercial break and we see that the news is spreading. We get the classic goofy face sequence where Frankie, Robin, and Usopp are seeing Luffy's portrait in the news. They're like, "Oh, Luffy's here. Oh, he's captured," and they're making the big gross out, disgust faces, which is kind of a hard thing to really capture the rhythm of in TV form. They're just kind of going through each of them one at a time, and their faces
cuts off the
up.
Yeah, it cuts off the bottom. I think like they need to show more chins.
And Zoro is similarly making a weird face, but that's because he's eating wasabi. And we can see he's hanging out with a certain somebody. I don't think he's named in this episode yet. But Zoro's making the face, and then he sees the news, and he's making another new face. So he's on a whirlwind of emotions. But he's more determined to make sure that he breaks Luffy out.
But do you think that when he spit out all that sake, that Yasu drank it because he spit right in his face?
He could have, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it seems like a waste otherwise.
Yeah.
So we transition to Udon Prison, where Luffy is being brought to, and we get a little scene where the guards are talking about this mysterious person who's in one of the prison cells. We don't get to see what he looks like, but he's been, like the rule of the prison is that he gets fed all like the poison gross fish, and somehow after all these years he has not died. He has not succumbed to the poison. So he must be a pretty interesting, tough dude. And that's when we get Mummy Luffy, and the guards are surprised that he isn't large like the quote-unquote lead performers, which are Kaido's like kind of top brass men, who are all just like big and massive, and Luffy's this tiny, scrawny kid.
Clearly, in the world of One Piece, the larger you are, the more powerful you are. In some cases.
Yeah, in some cases.
Yeah, it's interesting that the guy with the fish, they make it clear here that he doesn't actually not do his job. He just gets scared and drops it, and it falls into the cage. Like, it wasn't always clear though. Like, was this guy just lazy, or how did he get the bone?
Yeah, in the manga, it felt like he just was not diligent in taking out the bones.
Right. But in this one, he gets scared and drops it into the cell.
Yeah. And so which brings us to the next scene where one of the guards is taunting Luffy, and then he gets said fish bone right in his neck because the fish-eating prisoner ate all the flesh off and then spat the bones out like a.
Well, the guard was about to attack Luffy, who was bounded, so
right,
kind of had it coming.
Yeah. This is like when you realize that this is going to be a very long arc because we're just introducing more and more characters, and like this is the end of Act 1.
Yeah, introducing more and more characters. We just got to the port. We've seen Luffy be imprisoned in many arcs before. We understand that this is one of the tropes of the series.
Well, what I'd like to point out in as far as how this like labor camp, not just a prison, is set up comparatively to Impel Down, which was like dark and had elements like Dante's Inferno, very much like underworld themes to it. This feels like it's very bright, and I found that very like really interesting. It feels like more arid and like exposed. So going forward there's no ceiling. Yeah. So just like daylight. That actually is a nice contrast in comparison to Impel Down, so it doesn't feel like the same kind of thing over and over again.
Yeah. And
well, this isn't a prison. This is a labor camp. This is
right.
Supposed to be working. There's like it's a work site.
Yeah. So like the implications of like it's bright, it's airy, but you're still oppressed. I mean, just like on an aesthetic level, though, what they did with the light and color in this particular part of the episode is very, very well done. And I want a Mummy Luffy figure. He looks so badass like that.
And so Luffy, the whole idea is that Kaido and his crew are going to break Luffy's spirit until Luffy is just sort of working for them. And they toss Luffy into one of the prison cells, and we see a familiar face in there. It's one Eustace Kid who is also in the cell, and the anime really kind of goes nuts here, where the dialogue, because Luffy and Kid, they have not noticed each other right away yet. They're just kind of talking to themselves about how I'm gonna beat you, Kaido. I'm gonna topple you, and they're kind of saying the same thing in unison. And you've got like text on the screen. Like they're getting really high concept. They're getting really fancy as they're talking, just like the big weird Japanese text.
Well, didn't they do something similar at the beginning of Wano?
Not that I recall.
No text like this? Okay. So no. I wonder if this was like a bookend decision.
No. And the shamisen music. The shamisen music was from, I think, the first episode of Wano.
Correct.
We cut to the shamisen player. It's the familiar footage. She's off somewhere else. She's doing a thing, and the music's building up. Even though the episode's at its end, we're sort of building up in tension as Luffy and Kid, they notice each other. They're like, huh? You? And then that's when like the curtains fall, and it's kind of stylish because obviously the curtains, they're not diegetic. They're not like actually in the world of the story. They're for us. They're for the audience specifically. And the curtains fall, and the to be continued card, rather than like cutting straight to it, it actually like they like keyframe it from above, and it drops, and that's the to be continued.
And these past two episodes have like the most interesting to be continued reveals,
like back to back.
Yeah,
they have fun with it.
Yeah, actually, they did that once very early on, like episode 3. Or is it episode 1 or like episode 3, where they do like they do it in Japanese and they do with a big guitar riff.
And there used to be back in the day. There was one episode in the early episodes where it was like on a cannonball.
Ah, okay.
Oh. Yeah, I think it was either Don Krieg, or maybe Black Cats, but yeah. Sure.
There are examples of them doing kind of non-traditional to be continued cards throughout the whole series. But they're far and few between usually. So our next episode is 917, The Holy Land in Tumult. Emperor of the Sea, Blackbeard cackles. And the title card begins at 3 minutes and 53 seconds. The news coup, we see some news coups flying their way towards Muggy Kingdom, which fans will probably recognize as the place where Dracula, Mihawk, and Perona are hanging out. Perona sees Moria in the newspaper. She's at first she's shocked, but she reads it and then she's like happy crying because he's alive. And she's like, maybe Absalom and Hogback are with him. And I'm just thinking, like, why would that make you happy? Why them?
Well, she thought he was dead. That's why.
Right. Well, yeah, I guess she's.
I mean, they were crew, so.
I mean, just of all the assholes that she.
Sam, you
hangs
can't
out with.
pick your you can't pick your crew.
I'm just saying, Mihawk's right there. Like, what's so worse about Mihawk?
Oh, he's so mean to her. I mean,
are the others not?
No. Well, it's just her like kind of. She expects the royal treatment because like, hey, I cook for you. Is like, well, I do most of the cooking. Absalom and Hogback are assholes, but I don't know if they're assholes to her.
Home is where the heart is, I guess. So they have kind of a back and forth, a bickering where Perona she's leaving and she stops and she considers thanking Mihawk, but the words kind of don't come out right and they just kind of get in a fight instead. And she storms off and then he gets one last word in, like, "Oh, be careful on your way." And now she's crying again because it's like, "Oh, you do care." And then Mihawk is kind of explaining that he is considering leaving as well. Like the news of the Reverie is suggesting that the world's about to change and that maybe he can't stay put in one place for very long. Which brings us to the pirate island of Fullaled, which is another.
I'd just say that was like a 6-7 minute scene.
Yeah, it takes up a big bite.
Yeah. For 2 pages in the comics.
Of just like Perona and Mihawk hanging out and just having a weird relationship. Are they like, is she breaking up with him? Who knows?
So now we're on the pirate island of Fullaled, which, if I remember correctly, is a Stevenism that the subtitles are using here.
Well, yeah, I mean, otherwise, I'd rather them use that than,
or did Viz come up with that in the Davy Back fight days?
I don't know. I mean, either way, I prefer a translation than to not translate it and then not provide a note, as the anime does tend to do lately.
Well, I'm just noting, like, because there are times where the anime will specifically use something that, like, we know Steven came up with. Like, I remember when in Dressrosa, when the subtitles actually started using Usi, but then changed to Musi at some point. It was really
okay.
So we have a little scene. We don't see Blackbeard in full yet. We're getting kind of close-ups of his sunglasses in the newspaper that he's reading, and we see Sabo's in the newspaper. I remember, like, I totally buy all the theories that the sunglasses Blackbeard has in the scene are actually supposed to be Aokijis. That he just kind of like swiped from him at some point or something. Although in the anime, they look more like aviators most of the time. It's kind of hard to.
I mean, Aokijis were more like the John Lennon glasses, right?
Yeah, but it is the right tint.
Okay.
So who knows? So yeah, Blackbeard's hanging out in his chill, dark room, even though the island is like very bright and sunny and everyone's kind of partying and being pirates. And Moria is storming the island and he's looking for Absalom and he's got his zombies, he's got his nifty new red tie. That's how you know he's older.
I don't remember his voice being this screechy last time he was around.
Yeah.
Maybe I feel like the actor, I'm not sure if he really found what he had done before.
Yeah, I think he's trying to find it again. It's been almost like maybe 8 years since we've heard more.
Yeah, since like since the war.
Yeah,
and only then briefly.
It's the same voice actor as Jinbei, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah,
he's been around, but he just hasn't done this voice in quite some time. And you know what? His voice probably changed too. He probably can't hit those notes anymore.
And so this is where we get the new eye catch, or the temporary eye catch, because we're not technically in Wano right now. So they give us this weird little kind of series of portraits that kind of flip, and then it reveals just a Luffy wanted poster. And
the new Wano poster is nice, but I hope this doesn't, even after Wano, doesn't become a permanent eye catch. It's really distracting.
Well,
I mean, we're going to be in Wano so long. I feel like it will be time for new eye catches, regardless of the arc theme.
Yeah, you're right.
So when we come back, it's we see Pizarro, he's watching kind of Moria from a window, and Moria's looking for Absalom. But Absalom, he shows up. He's here. He's like, "Hey, boss, I'm chill. Like, we're having a good time." And then, just like very conveniently, Moria starts talking about the clear fruit. He's saying, "Absalom, you have the clear fruit. Lots of people want it. I was worried that somebody was going to kill you and take it from you." And Absalom's like, "That's ridiculous." And then an invisible man from nowhere starts slicing around, cutting up the zombies, cutting up Moria. And it's Shiryu of the Rain. Oh, this is another thing I noticed, or I kind of investigated after this episode, because the character title cards, I noticed that for like Moria and Shiryu, they were using the kind of standard romanizations, because I remember for a while both of those had like, for a while we were calling Shiryu Shiliu, and like Moria had an H at the end. But I guess in the manga, in this chapter in the manga, they reverted back to the other.
That's not going to stop. Not going to stop everyone.
I noticed the wikis have them this way now. So,
all right,
no more Moria with an H. So so that Shiryu having the clear fruit now implies that Absalom must be dead. But then who is this Absalom that we're looking at right now? And then Absalom kind of poofs. He turns into Katerina Devon, who's got a big poofy fox tails because she ate the dog fruit model 9-tailed fox.
That's very
a lot to process at once.
Yeah. Well, it couldn't be the Bon Clay fruit, so it had to be something.
Yeah, they are pretty similar, aren't they?
Yeah, one's a mythical Zoan.
Right.
Yeah, and then one only changes your face, I guess.
No, it changes body too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I guess the 9-tailed fox fruit is just the better clone fruit.
It
just can clone yourself. Plus, you can be a cool fox.
The one limitation I remember is that Bon Clay couldn't do his moves in someone else's body. So he was still physically limited by the body he took. So maybe
it's even worse. There's even less.
Yeah, well, we don't know the full extent of her abilities yet. So
there might be some different catches. And that's I remember that's still like a really kind of surprising turn. Like Shiryu getting the invisibility powers, that's unexpected. And Absalom actually being dead, like we know Absalom must be dead because of how devil fruits work.
Yeah, killing that perv off screen. I mean, we all wish for it, but it's still kind of horrifying that it happened.
It's just like, Oda, what got into you?
I'll also say Katerina Devon has her female fans as well. They're very loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome. I like her new pirate getup. I want to see the rest of them too.
So, and to announce his presence, Blackbeard does a big earthquake shake to the whole island, and he's kind of talking to Moria through the intercom system, and we see that Blackbeard now has a bounty of 2,247,600,000, and he's telling us that the revolutionaries, what the newspaper is referring to, is that the revolutionaries got into a fight with the world government, that Sabo and that group clashed with Fujitora. And, he's also mentioning that, like, while all this is happening, all these big names are gathering in Wano. And because he's getting all excited, he does another earthquake. We got a montage of all kind of the big players in the world that we're supposed to be thinking of, like Big Mom and Luffy and Kaido and all them. And another earthquake, but this time he cracks the screen. The to be continued card hits, but it's the glass is shattered, which is a neat effect. And then the to be continued card gets usurped by another title card, which announces the beginning of Land of Wano Act 2.
Indeed. What do you think, Brian?
I thought both these episodes were pretty well done. Like the previous episode we had where it was Luffy versus Kaido was, of course, like terribly animated. They definitely put their full foot in it. But what I liked about these 2 episodes, they're mainly just dialogue and scene and vignette bits, no action. But like every single episode, I felt like had a decent enough pace. Outside of like the Perona Mihawk stuff, but I was never bored. The animation quality was high. The characters looked consistent throughout most of it, and the performances, or at least the acting of it, was really well done and captured the spirit of the manga. I thought like excellent. I didn't have any problems with these 2.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty much my thoughts as well. It's good winding down from the fight of between Kaido and Luffy. It really showcases how far we have left to go here in the Wano anime as well. But yeah, that's the part with Moria that's sort of like dread inducing. Like I don't know what he thought he was doing wandering into this place. Like he thought Blackbeard was going to treat him, somewhat normally.
Well, I brought this point up last time, is the fact that like Moria actually cares about his crew, because think about what he just did. He did the equivalent of what Luffy did for Sanji. He was like, "Where's my crew member? I know they're there. I'm coming to get them."
Yeah, which you really wouldn't expect especially from him, where his whole motto is that like, "Oh, I'm lazy. You make me Pirate King." Yeah.
No, we've had this conversation.
Now he's fighting for somebody else, which is
no. I always assume, based on the context that he had for why he made a zombie army in the first place, because he lost everybody to Kaido. He's like, I don't want to lose anyone else, so I'm going to use zombies instead.
Yeah.
So he cares about his crew, all 3 of them.
How many of his zombies do you think are just like former crew members that Kaido killed?
Maybe a lot of them. That's even more tragic to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, yeah. Sam, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I thought these episodes were good. I thought the second episode, that's where most of the pacing trouble was. Just like we just stick with these 2 scenes for too long, I think.
I kind of like Mihawk and Perona romantic comedy.
Yeah, I do too. And I love cutting away from Wano. I love seeing this the new anime reboot art style, but not applied to Wano specifically, because oftentimes it feels like this new look is kind of a part of the location rather than like just like how the series is going to look from now on. So it's just nice it's fun to cut around to other places and see this new the varied line width and the I think generally just kind of smarter direction choices and smarter color choices and stuff.
Brighter color choices for sure. Like they're going more. They're going more like brighter pastels and a lot of these.
I thought they went very like soft pastels for a while, like lots of like light blues and pinks, and is sort of kind of what I think of a lot of post time skip art, and like not a lot of very deep blacks, but like I like the big bold primary colors,
Yeah,
which is more in spirit of One Piece, I think.
Yeah, and I also like to say one of the reasons I prefer like the pacing of these episodes, they didn't use hardly any filler, if anything. Like everything, like outside of like Perona making that like pastry dish for Mihawk, that's the only thing that was added. Everything else is in the manga. So it's just like taking the elements that are already there and like extrapolating a little bit on top of them.
I guess this is a situation where I would have liked just like a little filler, just like a little like, oh hey, I have an idea for like what other kind of details might exist in this scene.
I have a sneaking
good,
suspicion we'll see less of that. We might see less of that going forward because the series essentially is coming to a close, so they may not want to risk doing that so much anymore.
All right, I think that about does it. Do you guys have any last comments you want to get in before we move on to the next segment?
No, I'm good.
Mm-mm.
All right, let's move on.
Okay.
This has been episode 603 of the One Piece podcast for January 12th, 2020. Big thanks to Steven for going through volume 95 with us, and thanks, Ed, for being there to do that with us as well.
Absolutely.
So we had the week off. Please let us know if you like this. We have a couple things. First off, we have a survey up on our website. If you have not checked that out, you could win both Color Wall Compendiums if you take part in that survey. It helps us understand the community a little bit better and also understand what you want to help make us bigger and better. Please also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/OnePiecePodcast, where we posted a brand new, very special episode of the David Backfights. David Bednar, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I did the thing I do and brought 2 more weirdo word games, and boy, I teased their brains with them. It was a real time.
So that'll be on Patreon first, and we'll probably come to the podcast when we have a break next, which I assume Oda will take a break one day. So there's that. Please support us on patreon.com/OnePiecePodcast. We've been putting a lot of stuff up there, including One Piece Podcast Goes to Dallas from 2016, talking about our dubbing adventure, and we also... or videos of our dubbing adventure, including interviews with Colin Clinkenbeard and Joel McDonald. And we also have, I reposted the complete collection, so includes every single episode of the One Piece Podcast, all 603 as we currently count, in an easy to find place there, on patreon.com/OnePiecePodcast. That's enough of me talking. David, where can people find you?
On Twitter, I'm, however you type in a Twitter name, Ykarps. That's YKARPS. It's like a Magikarp, but you don't know why.
Shannon.
I'm on Twitter at Plenty of Valcos, and the 2 podcasts I'm on are at Critical Bitcast and at Struggle Sesh, and you can find me on YouTube at Strucci Movies if you just search that.
Thanks, Shannon. Kendra.
You can follow me on Twitter at Sniper of My Heart, and the 2 podcasts, you can check me out on are at Haiku Pod and at MHA Pod.
Joey.
I'm at Joey Weiser on Twitter and Joey Weiser Comics on Instagram. And please check out my graphic novels, the Merman graphic novel series, as well as Ghost Hog, which just came out last year. And listen to the podcast I do with Alex and our friend Scott called Toho Yaro. That's a Japanese film club podcast where we watch a movie and talk about it. And the new episode coming up soon is going to be hosted by me, and it'll be about Gokei Body Snatcher from Hell with our friend Casey Manofsky article guesting on that. And you can follow Toho Yaro on Twitter as well. Thanks.
Steve. See there? He was there. He's been in the background.
Here I am. Uncle Buck.
Oh, there he is.
Actually, I just walked back in the room. What do you want?
Where can people find you? I'm letting you plug for even though you don't do anything.
I'm the one that's towering in the distance.
What do you want?
Where can people find you, Steve?
Twitter, Instagram. Steve Yurko is the username. Listen to me on this podcast, the One Piece Podcast. You could also listen to me on The Deep End. Listen to me on Toon Sweet. And I don't know. Yeah, that's it.
And for those wondering, yes, that is the first thing Steve has said on this episode. And Ed, where could the good people out there contact us?
Well, Zach, you are at Zach_Logan on Twitter. I'm at Edward E. One Piece. I'm also at Weeb Trailers. Podcast can be found at OnePiecePodcast.com, Twitter.com, YouTube.com, and Facebook.com/OnePiecePodcast. OnePiecePodcast@gmail.com is the email address. One Piece Podcast is our Skype ID. You can subscribe on SoundCloud, subscribe on Spotify, subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, or call us on our phone number, Zach.
And that phone number is 347-497-MAJI.
MAJI.
That phone number again is 347-497-6254. Call anytime.
Anytime.
With your questions, comments, theories upon theories, and theories about those theories, including what year of Blorsa you were born in. That makes no sense. Really fun podcast today, you guys. I learned a lot. Hopefully we could do this in the future, maybe in a more organized... I don't care if it's not organized. It was a fun discussion. And again, if you want to read something in depth but still outdated, One Piece Connection is available on our website. And yeah, don't forget to check us out everywhere and on Patreon and all that stuff. But we'll see you next week with what I assume will be another earth-shattering chapter of One Piece. Until then, my name is Zach.
My name is Ed.
And my name is Steve. That's the
there
second
you are.
thing you'll hear me say.
We'll see you next week, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.